with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, thank you very much. And I think the cake is gone, but there may be a cupcake left, so Ms. Sandy may want that. We've got the adoption of the agenda. You have a motion to adopt the agenda? We got a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right. The agenda has been adopted. In preliminary motions, this is where we ask again for our ordinances, resolutions to be read by title only. We have a motion to J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I make a motion that we read ordinances and resolutions by title only.
We have a motion, a second. By J.P. Ecke. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, so we'll read ordinances and resolutions by title only. Preliminary citizen comments at this point. Again, we ask folks to come up and tell us where you are, where you live, where you're from, what's your name, and then we'll go ahead and allow you. You had 3 minutes. We have 15 minutes of total time to share your public comments. So at this point, come forward, tell us who you are, what's your name, and what's your where you live.
It's green. There we go. Hello, Judge Dwight Gonzalez, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm coming to speak in support of the proposed salary structure plan to the budget that's on item number 13. More specifically for our janitorial team that currently make just a little over $12 an hour. The janitorial team at Benton County, there's not a single one of them that makes less than $16 an hour. And so they make $540 every 2 pay periods more than our team does here. The University of Arkansas, who has historically always paid less than Washington County, is now actively recruiting at $14 an hour. When you put in the $12 an hour with the 5.25% of APRS that automatically comes out of their paychecks, they're automatically now making even less and they're bringing home less. And then for our employees that make that salary every month, the only place that they can reasonably, affordably live is outside and farther away. We have many of our janitorial staff that live as far away as Madison County into Huntsville, all the way into Cincinnati. And those that live in Fayetteville, their rent is even increasing more and more. Some of them so much that it takes more than one paycheck to even pay for their rent, not including their utilities. And so with the proposed salary structure that is being presented to the Quorum Court tonight with on number 13 there for the budget, I just wanted you to know that I highly support it. None of us likes to increase spending. We don't like it. However, if we want to continue the same COVID sanitation disinfection protocols with the staff we have, if we want to make sure the trash is out, these janitorial team also work second shift. They work 4:30 to 1 a.m. every single night. They're the unsung heroes in the county that no one knows about until all of a sudden something is not clean. They are a very amazing, cohesive team that if one of them is sick, we're already short-staffed for the amount of square foot that we have, but they're an amazing team that if one of them is sick, if one of them wants to take vacation time, they all pitch in together, make up for that. And so I just wanted to speak on their behalf, let you all know that I'm full in favor of the proposed salary structure plan that was presented before the Finance Committee the other night, and I'd appreciate your support.
Citizen comments? Citizen comments.
Hey there, good evening. Angela Ledgerwood, Animal Shelter Director. I live in District 13, Prairie Grove. I received a call this week. I'm going to keep my comments brief, but I received a call this week from J.P. Dennis, and I want to say thank you. He called to ask me what my thoughts were on this proposed salary structure, and we had a nice conversation, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to come and ask me. As I mentioned in my conversation earlier, I believed that the proposed salary structure is good for county employees as a whole, okay? To me, it makes sense, and it seems fair across the board. I believe a lot of planning and preparation went into the proposal, and in my opinion, the intent was honest and forthcoming. I do not believe that there was any ill intent, and I do believe the transparency of the presentation supports that. I fully support the original proposal, and I hope that you will consider supporting it as well.
Citizen comments.
Good evening. Ben Dykes, Director of Veteran Services for Washington County. As everybody knows, I've spoken at the previous two meetings regarding my veteran staff and the veterans and the families that we serve across the community. I've got two full-time members. I have a part-time member at the time being. They're all struggling to pay to come to work. Everything costs more. Inflation's up, the economy's down, so everyone's struggling. I agree with the proposed pay structure. Something has to be done. Something needs to be done soon, or I'm losing a guy here in about 2 weeks. I've spoken to numerous JPs individually. I can only ask that something be done soon. It's time. It's not a cost of living adjustment. It is a market adjustment. The market has outpaced us. The economy, the growth in Northwest Arkansas has outpaced the salary scale, and this is a catch-up, and something needs to be done. That's all I got to say. My guys and myself, we're all retired military. We served our country. Now we serve our community and the veterans and families. Thank you. It's an honor.
Citizen comments.
Russell Hill, Washington County Assessor. We have serious issues with the entire HR salary adjustment process and the manner in which it was done. We are for raises. We know the employees need raises desperately. Several of us have met with HR Director on June 29th. She told us that we were no longer using Johansson and that we had contracted with a company called Market Equity. She sang their praises and how great they were going to be, and we would love the results. We never saw the data. Where is it? How much did the county pay for it? Was the Personnel Committee notified? I spoke with J.P. Ecke and J.P. Deakins. Neither have heard anything about the company or that the county was even working with them. Why wasn't their data ever shared with us or the JPs? Why wasn't the Personnel Committee involved in part of the process? They are there to provide checks and balances. Throughout the entire process, the executive and legislative branches of our county government have been left in the dark. If Johansson is so bad, why have we been using it for 20 plus years? Why would we be comparing with Benton County, who also uses Johansson? The system isn't broke. The county was broke and couldn't afford to keep up with the market, and we just fell behind over the years. This title for title comparison does not work. Trying to determine a person's pay using someone else's job title from a different county is inaccurate and, in this case, inequitable. Even if they have the same exact title, it does not mean they have the same responsibilities, duties, experience, and scope of work. When comparing our job scores with the descriptions with Benton County, they were very different and not equitable. We need to pay our people according to their job duties, responsibilities, and experience and scope of work, not someone else's in a different county. When we looked at the tables and the data they used, the HR proposal was incorrect. The tables were wrong, they were incomplete, and therefore inaccurate and not equitable. They are calling this a salary adjustment, but it is anything but that. They want to pay our people based on another person's job and experience in a different county based solely on a similar title. How do we pay people in the future if we no longer paying them off of their score, their grade, and on the actual job description and experience? The current proposal puts an end to all of our rating and grading over the past 7 years since I've been in office. Our solution, put together in cooperation with the treasurer, sheriff, circuit clerk, county clerk, collector, and assessor, is a true salary adjustment. We didn't change grade ranges. We simply adjusted the salaries associated with the current grade ranges to compare them with the salaries in Benton County. We have created an option, a better option, that we believe provides fair, equitable pay based on each employee's current job description and experience. Please give us an opportunity to show you a fair and equitable plan. Everybody needs a pay increase. We want to give it to them, but we've got a system in place. We need to follow that system. And we need to do it correctly. We don't need to rush this through.
Wrap your comments.
All right, thank you.
Citizen comments.
Alyssa Mason, I work in the circuit clerk's office. I am in support of raises. I could really use the money. I am working 2 jobs right now to make ends meet. However, I am not in support of HR's proposal. I am in support of my elected official's proposal, his amendments. I do not agree with what HR is trying to do, and I wanted to let you guys know that I don't support it. I also don't agree with the decision to have premise taken away from me. I have spent my money going to another provider for medical care, and that provider dismissed my medical concerns. I don't appreciate not being included in a decision that my medical health is included in. I don't appreciate that, and I don't feel like my best interests are being taken into consideration. I work hard for my position. I work hard for the county, and that should be taken into account. I'm fairly new to the county, but yet I'm still an employee and I work hard. Thank you.
Citizen comments.
Kathy Giddens. I've been with the county 17 and a half years with the circuit clerk's office. I don't agree with the plan that HR and them have come up with. I urge y'all to listen to our elected officials. Our elected officials are the ones that work with us. They know what we do in our office. HR knows our job title. They don't know what we do in our offices. They don't know how many different things we do day to day. A lot of people don't. Y'all may know us by name, but y'all don't know everything we do. We work hard for the county, and they know what we do. They know what we as taxpayers ourselves, but we take care of the taxpayers also. And our elected officials are the ones that need to be listened to, not somebody that just looks at our name and, oh, this is their title. Because that title doesn't mean nothing if you haven't went in and followed that person around and sees what that person does all day. So please listen to our elected officials and dig deeper into this plan and go with our elected officials, because there's been so many things that have come out this past week that nobody had any clue about because we weren't made aware of. And things are unfolding, insurance things, our health coverage, premise being taken away from us. All of that stuff affects our lives, which affects our jobs. And as the employees of Washington County, we deserve better. And y'all need to stop and think and listen to our elected officials so we can get better. Because when y'all take care of us, we also take care of the county, and we take care of our taxpayers. We deserve to be taken care of also. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizen comments. Citizen comments. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and, Koger, you come in? 2 minutes.
My name is Beth Koger. I live at 3661 Embry Drive. My citizen comment is I approached the county attorney very politely tonight just before the meeting to ask him a question. And he was very rude and dismissive, and I think as a taxpayer that y'all need to know that we deserve better treatment than that from our county attorney. I didn't. I asked you a question, Brian.
Not. Thank you. Citizen comments. Citizen comments. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. Got a motion by
Motion to
Lisa
approve
Ecke,
the
a
minutes.
second by J.P. Dennis. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, we're going to go right ahead into our judge's report. And again, as you came in today, first of all, your disposal report should be in your packet. Today, well, as actually Monday, we had our celebration. Washington County turned 194 years, and for me, it was pretty awesome to see and witness what has gone on for 194 years in this county. I first wish to acknowledge, obviously, your attendance and being here. I definitely want to make sure we recognize our elected officials and the JPs, but in particular, the backbone of our county is our employees. And so, again, thank them for getting us here to this 194 years. I also reached out to our mayors, asked them to come. Many of them are having meetings tonight. They sent their well wishes, but some are here tonight. And so I want to ask the mayors that are here to come forward. I think I see Mayor Russell, Mayor Sprouse, Mayor Hudson. Come on up front. We have great partners. We have great partners with our mayors across the county. And the county does not get to this place without working with our city officials that take care of the residents in their particular cities. And as those cities do well, and I'm telling you, they're everywhere. They work hard, our mayors. I'm in their festivals. I'm down in Little Rock receiving awards with them. I know they're in D.C. at their municipal leagues. They work hard. They were running municipal leagues. And so I have tipped my hat to them. I see them everywhere. I'm with them. And I'm so appreciative of the work that you guys do. And I know your predecessors, I would say the same thing. They have really helped bring Washington County to where it is because of the work that you do. So with that, can we give the mayors who are here a hand and thank them? So you guys.
Quorum Court wants to stay standing. We're gonna get everyone in the picture.
Our first lady is here from Prairie Grove. Hey, Becky, come on up here. Here, she said she's got grandbabies, right? Grandbabies. And he's got the grandbabies. Oh, yeah.
Chandra, can you scoot over this way so we can get you all in the picture toward Robert?
Hey, Sheriff, we have any mayors out there that didn't get in? Okay.
Just scoot over here. I'm trying to get Sean ran. There you go. Good. Thank you.
One more time for our mayors. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sandy. And before I start asking them to come, I want to honor we have 4 county judges living still here in Washington County. All of them wanted to be here. And I think Judge Edwards is having some challenges, and I wish you guys would keep her lifted in prayer and all. She sounds great, but again, some health concerns. Mayor Hutton, I don't know if he's here. Did he show up? Judge Hutton? What did I say? Mayor? Judge Hutton. What about Judge Johnson? Okay, we have some certificates that we have for them, but also we are going to be sharing with them a Washington County judge's history book. When I started working through our archives, and I used to be the Deputy Secretary of State, and so I had all archives for the state, all records and all laws the Secretary of State is responsible for, and so I had our Capitol historian. So I really got really deeply entrenched in what happens when we start taking care of those histories in the archives. When I got to the county, I jumped right in, and I was just totally fascinated by what our county has has been. Like we talked about, some of the first documents were slaves that were sold in this county, and here it is in a short couple of 194 years. You have me as a county judge, and so I don't take any of that for granted. In fact, as you start going through, and we put this book of the judges, the very first county judge was Judge McCamey. And it hit me because probably this year, earlier this year, I was swearing in a board member to the our county library. And as I'm swearing her in, she said, "Hey, my relatives, this is kind of the first one of our relatives since my dad, great-granddad, was elected." I said, "Elected as what?" She said, "County judge." I said, "What's his name?" She said, "Judge McCamey." I said, "No way." And he was the very first county judge here in Washington County, but he also was the first to help draft the Arkansas State Constitution. So that history, and you see their ancestors and now their great-grandkids are now participating in supporting the county. But as we start putting this book together and start to understand the facts, it is so, every county cannot have what we have. The richness of our archives, the Historical Society, the Shiloh Museum. We end up working with the Arkansas State Secretary of State's archives. We even work with the Congressional U.S. Congress, Library of Congress. Years ago, I got my library card from the Library of Congress, and let alone all these years, here we are being able to use it. So again, the richness of our county. And I said, when we put this book together, I hope you guys get a chance to read through it. We'll make it digital and online, but the mayors, you guys have that. Hopefully you'll find it as fascinating a read as you look at the varied backgrounds of those judges who came before me, who led us to where we are today. And in fact, I would encourage our elected officials to do maybe taking on the same project, because to have all of that, how awesome would that be to have the history of all our sheriffs, to have all of our coroners to come before us and have that in all our county libraries across the counties. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate our judges. I want to make sure I share that. And again, kudos to our judges, Judge Edwards, Judge Hutton, and Judge Johnson, for clearly leading us to this place where we're now the third largest county in the state. We're one of the fastest growing, and none of that could happen without having visionaries, without having people who are sensitive to the fact that there's growth happening and relations have to be built, and that's in conjunction with our mayor. So again, appreciate you guys for being here and sharing in our 194-year birthday celebration. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda item, new business, item 8. Counselor, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge.
Let me say, mayors, you guys are gracious if you want to stay. Okay, all right. Go ahead, J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a short-term rental property that wants to start operations out by the lake. This was passed by the Planning and Zoning Board. I've received no comments or negative feedback from this. I'd like to suspend the rules and move this to the second reading.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to move to a second reading, and second by J.P. Duncan. All in favor? When they approve it. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Counsel, will you read that one for a second time?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for the Water's Edge project.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd like to suspend the rules and move this to third and final reading.
Counsel, will you, there's a motion on the floor to read for a third and final. J.P. Lemming, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Counsel, will you read that one for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
And J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd like to move passage of item 8.1.
There's a motion and a second by J.P. Simons. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Myra.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
All right, thank you, Ms. Myra. That item passes, item 8. We'll move on to item 9. Council, will you read that one? Oh, well, yeah, go ahead. Oh, this is appeal. Okay, so now we have the J. No, it was 14. This is the J&J Concrete Pumping Conditional Use Appeal. The process will be, we'll have a presentation by our planning team. After the planning team walks through the presentation, they'll then ask any various departments, whether it be the Department of Water, ADQ, if they have anything that they would like to share, and then we will hear from the applicant and/or the appellant. The allotted time is 30 minutes for public comments thereafter. Take it away.
Good evening. A conditional use permit is sought by J&J Concrete Pumping. J&J is located out towards Sonora, south of 412 off of Sherry Road. This CUP is to bring the existing operation into compliance. Materials and heavy equipment are stored on site and transported to client properties. To date, the planning office has received at least 8 complaints from neighboring landowners about the CUP. The issues are largely safety in nature. Sherry Road is a narrow 2-lane road, and the access easement is about 10 feet wide. Concern about heavy vehicles coming in, tractors, bulldozers, etc., on a very narrow access road. Neighbors cite a general nuisance with vehicles coming in, going out all hours of the day and night from 4 a.m. out to 11 p.m., and sometimes having about 8 to 10 vehicles parked on site that are presumably employee vehicles. There's another concern that the request doesn't align with what the CUP was requested, which was for one business operation and a maximum of 1 employee parked during daytime hours. In addition to disruption of private enjoyment of property, noise, decreased property value, and also a concern that there's a concrete washout in operation. This came to attention starting in December of 2021 when neighbors started noticing construction equipment coming in, the erection of a warehouse, and planning department subsequently went out to verify these claims from neighbors. And it culminated until March when we sent a informative letter stating the need for a conditional use permit. Subsequently, in April through July, the county attorney issued a cease and desist, and sheriff's deputies had multiple contacts with the property owners, and 2 citations were issued. In July, the property owners applied for a conditional use permit, and in the August 2022 Planning Board Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, the CUP was denied. These photos show the typical condition. I presume it's still typical. And this is Sherry Road.
Blake, nothing showed up.
Your presentation?
It's not a switch.
Jumped the gun on that one. I am so sorry.
There you go.
Anyway, there's illustrated as a shared access easement with Sherry Road running north-south to the west. and current operation of a warehouse, construction equipment, materials being stored on site and being transported to and fro. This is Sherry Road from the southern and from the northern and southern perspective, respectively. It's kind of a narrow road. This is a private access drive extending west-east, and it's about 10 feet paved. County planning would accept this with the conditions of any further deviations, construction, et cetera, coming before the planning board. A maximum of 1 employee parked on site during working hours, which was requested by the applicant. Limit heavy equipment operation and transportation to daytime hours. And limit the weight of trucks, equipment, trailers that use the access easement to the weight capacity the private driveway was designed to support. Thank you, and I believe the applicant and the applicant's representative are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Blake. Before we go to them, do we have anyone here from either ADQ, Department of Health, any of the support departments?
I do not
Utilities?
believe.
No? Okay. All right, with that, then we'll go ahead and bring the applicant up if there's anything he would like to share or she would like to share.
Is it okay if she comes forward?
Yes. Can we, Blake, can you grab another chair then? Do we have another one? Thanks, Doc. Go ahead, tell us who you are and go ahead.
My name is Andrew Myers. I'm an attorney for the...
Get your mic, yeah.
My name is Andrew Myers. I'm an attorney for the Serrano family, who are the applicants herein, specifically Ms. Serrano's father, who's here with us tonight. They live, again, on Sherry Road. Their piece of property was actually parceled out to 3 separate parcels. Tonight, we're specifically dealing with, and I believe that the photo accurately depicted it, the father's, Ms. Serrano's father's parcel that has a warehouse on it, a home on it, and as was evidenced there, specifically 2 concrete pumps. And for those who don't know, which I did not as well, whenever I started, a concrete pump basically looks like a square trailer that's anywhere from 8 to 10 feet long and about 4 to 5 feet wide. That's the equipment we're talking about storing on the property. The Serranos have been doing that since they moved onto the property. And in doing that, they also will have an employee, one employee, come and park in the driveway. Now, this is a pretty rural area. It's basically Sonora. And out there, there's not a lot of paved driveways, at least around there, that we have. So the driveway is gravel or dirt. But so the Serranos, this started when my clients received a cease and desist letter, or citation actually, from I believe it was Elkins Police Department. I didn't believe my clients were actually operating a business out there. I believe that it was no different than a plumber driving a work truck or storing his materials in his garage, or a HVAC worker or a contractor doing the same. Nonetheless, I told my clients that in order to avoid any hassle, because their understanding was it was a complaining neighbor who caused this, basically this citation to be, or put the county on notice. So they've applied for a conditional use permit. Again, it's for really the storage of 2 concrete pumps that will eventually go into what you saw here, which is a shop on the property, and parking for 1 employee. The noise, the trucks, etc. My clients have, for lack of a better word, dualies. They're personal vehicles that they also use when they work to pull these 2 trailers. One of the employees will oftentimes come out there, park, get in one of the dualies, drive the trailer to a work site, much like any other contractor would. There's technically not another brick and mortar for their business, but there really doesn't need to be, because again, contractors can kind of operate off of a phone and if they have a room in their house. So the conditional use permit, I believe, should be approved. To give you context again, we're out in Sonora. You have to go east of Springdale, obviously, on 412. When you go out, you go what I call through the town of Sonora, past that, I think, gas station Dollar General out there. When you go past that, you pass a few businesses. One's Northwest Caststone that's on the left when you come up. That's about 0.5 miles from the turnoff from my client's house. When you go past Northwest Caststone, you come upon Sonora Truck Services on the right, another business. You go past that. Up until recently, there was a suet salvage yard that was there on the left. Go past that, Claiborne HVAC business on the right, and go past that, Scroggins Plumbing on the left, before you come to the turnoff for Sherry Road. When you come upon Sherry Road and you go to turn right to go towards my client's property, if you look to the left, there is a Sonora Auto, RV, and Boat Storage, so another storage unit. When you turn right and you go down Sherry Road, so a side road off of 412, you go down, you go past one road right before the easement, and around where that road is and right before the easement starts is a piece of property where a tractor trailer parks whenever the owner's home. So we have other, what I would say, businesses and then properties storing what I would call work equipment that is not necessarily used on that property or is operated on that property, but is stored on that property till the next day they go to the job or till they go out of town. So that's what we're dealing with here in kind of the context of the property at issue. You then turn onto an easement. You go past who I believe to be the complaining neighbor. Go past their property, you turn, and then that's how you get to my client's property, another property that is just past my client's property that contains, I believe, a shop house for lack of a better word, and then a couple of properties behind there off the easement. So I believe the easement actually accesses about 8 different homes. Now, when we look at approving a conditional use permit, I don't want to run through all these factors as if y'all do not know, but that is also kind of my job. So Section 11-200 of the Washington County Code of Ordinances lays out some factors, approximately 7, but realistically here 5 that we need to look at to determine whether a conditional use permit should be approved in this context. The first factor that comes in is the adequate utilities, roads, drainage, and other public services that are available and adequate. Now, again, what we have here are storage, is the storage of 2 trailers and the parking for 1 employee. We don't really have any utilities that would be necessary. I can't think of any other public services. What we're talking about really in terms of this and what could be an issue and what has been brought up before is the width of the road. Now, this easement is a 30-foot wide easement with on the survey, it's a 12-foot wide, I'll say, gravel patch for driving. That was paved to narrow it down to 10-foot wide. So we have a 10-foot wide strip, give or take approximately, along this easement that we're driving up and down. There's testimony, or there was in the meeting minutes from the board hearing, saying that that was too narrow because of these trailers. These trailers are narrower than the dually, and we're not here to say that we can't drive a dually as a personal vehicle. In addition, a neighbor across the easement that uses the easement that we believe to be the complaining neighbor has a pontoon with a trailer that is bigger than either one of our trailers. Again, our trailers are no longer than 10 foot long and no wider than 5 foot. Obviously, a pontoon's bigger than that, but apparently that easement's big enough for that boat and trailer. So the safety aspect of the narrow road, I think, is more smoke and mirrors than anything. In addition, this is technically at this time zoned residential agricultural. It's one of those kind of just blanket zonings whenever one of those zones that if it wasn't specific, then that's kind of was categorized as or zoned as. Technically speaking, we could have a cow trailer, chicken trailer, whatever we want out there to work agriculturally, for agricultural purposes. So again, those would be bigger than these trailers. And so that's, when we're talking about the width of the road, I don't think that factor actually goes against us, especially when people who already use the easement haul bigger trailers and frankly, product, i.e. the pontoon. And the next factor we need to look at is whether the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. Again, relatively rural, but within about a half a mile of that turn, you're passing multiple what you would historically call blue collar, but really categorized as contractor type of work with HVACs, with plumbing, etc. and you pass a storage unit. If you turn left there, you go to the storage unit facility. If you turn right, you go to our place. Again, this is talking about storing contractor-type equipment on a piece of property. So what our use would be is obviously compatible, we believe. In addition, again, right before that easement, you have a tractor trailer stored on the side of the road right there as well. So we believe that the use would be compatible with that surrounding area. The next factor is that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Again, it's just storing trailers. There's a pontoon on a trailer that's stored there too. Don't see how this is really any different. The concrete pumps typically don't necessarily run there. They also don't run when you're driving them. You take them to a work site to, pour foundation, whatever you're going to do, and that's where they run. So the noise, anything like that that would endanger the general welfare is really just a vehicle driving down the road. In this context, most of those vehicles are dualies that double private and help with work as well. So that's where the noise is coming from. That's not even the equipment we're here to talk about, because by all accounts, that's categorized as personal property. That's not categorized as business property. The next factor is that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the surrounding area for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the surrounding area. Again, a lot of businesses kind of in line with what we're doing: HVAC, plumbing, cast stone, storage. You also have a tractor trailer, again, right before the easement. So I don't think that if a tractor trailer parked on the side of the road, or these other businesses located there by where customers would actually technically come, or that this is their separate brick and mortar company, then I don't think that that's going to really diminish property values. Finally, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding area for uses permitted in the zone. We're not really building any structures we wouldn't otherwise be allowed to build. Now, we have a warehouse, we have a shop, but you'd be able to do that for agricultural purposes or for residential if it was not specifically for a business. So building that, what I call that fixture, that building on the property is not going to hinder development of that area, and then parking trailers in that storage unit in the long run, in the shop in the long run, isn't going to as well, and allowing someone to park in the driveway during work hours whenever they go to sites isn't either. So I believe that the factors clearly support our position. And I will say one last comment is that the complaining neighbor that is just directly across the easement, who we understand to be the complaining neighbor, also operates his insurance company out of that house. At least that's what has been described to my clients. So not only are we dealing with tractor trailers, HVAC companies, plumbers, storage facilities, etc., right across the easement, we have an insurance business being operated with an office in the home. So if we are conducting business, then certainly that neighbor is as well. And with that business directly across, I don't believe ours could be found to be any more detrimental in terms of simply just parking trailers, parking cars. And so with that, I would represent that pursuant to Section 11-200, the conditional use permit should be approved, and my client's allowed to, and I'll use the language specifically from the notice, use their property for the operation of a concrete pump business with intent of storage of equipment, machinery, and trailers. Well, that's all I say, basically, 2 concrete pumps, an existing shop, and parking for 1 employee. And that's all we have.
You didn't have any comments? You're good? Okay. With that now, we'll go ahead and, J.P. Lemming, going to hold questions in.
Did you do a little research in all the businesses that you talked about? Did you do any research and see if they have a CUP or have a CUP at any time?
No, we intended to FOIA that information, but we did not get that information in time for this hearing. So I'm not aware of that at this time.
The issue that okay, let's back up one more question. How long has these folks lived at this location?
About a year.
So you built the shop building and all that in about a year?
Yeah, around that time.
Okay.
JP Dennis.
Thank you, Judge. Were there any covenants on the land when you bought it?
Covenants on the land? No, not, at least not that were recorded that my clients were aware of.
She looked puzzled there. Any restrictions or anything in the deed that said you can't use the land for anything but residence?
No.
Okay. Have another one, it's kind of small. Are the trees yours or are they the neighbors?
The neighbors.
Neighbors.
And
Any
right now,
chance,
actually, it's
any
it's
chance you'd be willing to put up trees to help build a border?
We actually have put up trees, oak trees, and right now they have put up a fence, so it's harder for them to see us.
Okay, all right. Oak trees are slow growing. I'd rather see something that grew faster if I wanted a barrier, but, you know, that's your choice. Then the other question I had, and I think I know the answer, but at the same time, others might not know on a concrete pump. They're clean. Are they cleaned at the work site, or are they cleaned back here?
They do get cleaned at the work site where the concrete goes in. Everything gets washed at the site, the job site. The only thing that gets cleaned at this property, it's the outside. So if there's any dust or anything, it gets cleaned at that, like cleaning a car, but nothing of the inside.
Okay, any runoff from the concrete when it comes back to your place when you clean it?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
JP Deacons and then JP Lemming.
Why the non-compliance for so long?
What was that?
Why were you out of compliance for so long?
This has been going on for a while, and it's been kind of a lot of miscommunication. The first time that Sam, he's back here, he went out there. First time I talked to him, I basically explained the situation. He said, well, if you guys, that's what you guys are doing, there's nothing basically we can do. Next time we talked, he said we needed to, well, before that, there was 2 sheriffs that were called to our house, and one of them talked to my brother, and he told him, you guys are not running a business, you're not operating from here, so there's nothing we can do. So that happened like a month apart. So at first we're in depression, we're not doing anything wrong, and then we got the cease and desist. That's whenever we got with Andrew, and so.
Well, see, I find that very hard to believe because I was watching this play out. And to get a citation for this, that's egregious. I mean, that takes a long time to do. And I don't understand why, from when I was hearing the neighbors start complaining about this and started getting emails, I mean, it seemed like you guys had you had no response to this whatsoever after being notified.
Well, every time that somebody would go out there, they would say, you guys are operating. And in our perspective, we're not operating. Nothing is getting done, and then we're just storing. So when we would tell them we're not operating, they would be like, oh, okay, if you guys are not operating.
Yeah. Well, so, I'll bend over backwards to get businesses opened up in the county. But there are things that just go way outside of normal, and in my opinion, you definitely have done that now. To get cited for your operations, I mean, that's, I think even at the least, if you were notified and you said, you know what, you're right, we'll come get this rectified, I think the county's very open to working with you guys, planning's very open to work with you guys, and this was a completely, this was so egregious in my mind, I'm just so hard pressed to support something like this. And so when the planning board comes, or the planning department comes and says that they want to put these additional stipulations, these conditions on, that's one of our things. We have to be good neighbors. If you have this very poor track record, how are we now supposed to trust that you'll follow the conditional use permit and meet the conditions that they're wanting to put on now?
Yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. And like I said, there was a bit of miscommunication, working to try to apply for the CPU. Also, the owner of the traders, it's my dad. He doesn't speak English, so I'm the one that translates for him. So there's a lot of going back and forth and explaining a lot of things. So I apologize. I apologize for the delay in things, but I feel like now that we understand things better, I just don't want you to think that we're like, we don't care and we're not trying to be compliant. We want to be compliant, and we want to do everything that we can to make this work and get this permit.
Thank you, Judge Wood.
JP Lemming and then JP Real Stafford.
So you would be, your father, y'all would be willing to build fence and do whatever we need to do to get everything in compliance?
I would have to talk to him and see, and also we would have to see what the regulations are.
Did you just say they put a fence up or you put a fence up?
No, the neighbors put a fence up, wasn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Would y'all be willing to put a fence up to get all of your stuff behind fence?
That was the plan,
Because
yes.
I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Yes, that was the plan. They're trying to big a fence, but they haven't been in that shop. There's a living space. They haven't been there that long. There's still construction going on. That is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge
JP
Wood.
Real Stafford.
Thank
And
you.
then JP Ussery.
I guess I missed this part in the beginning. What was the citation for, and when did that happen?
I think I can help. The citation was basically violation of a city or county ordinance for operating a business. I actually spoke with the city prosecutor. I think it was Elkins. I believe that was actually, I got a little confused because I thought it'd be Springdale or some other place, but I believe it was Elkins. So when I spoke with him, we put this on the back burner to see how this went. How this went is the first citation. It was operating a business. I asked him how exactly that was defined and how storing, a trailer, one trailer is operating a business, but storing a tractor trailer isn't exactly. So there was a citation issue, I believe, in approximately May. It was, by all accounts, suspended pending all of this to make sure that we basically get in front of who we need to make sure we're in compliance.
So do you all believe that the citation was issued improperly, or what's your position on that?
I've taken the position from the get-go. I do not believe, based on what my clients have represented to me, that this is operating a business. Simply parking trailers and having someone come and park in your driveway. I believe that for lack of a better word, is a slippery slope if we want to start categorizing that as operating a business. For example, I keep my briefcase in my house, I keep my suits in my house, and I may even have a computer that I work off at my house. Is that operating a business that's violating residential and agricultural zoning? Based on this, I think that that's kind of the route we can easily take. So no, I don't think that they were in violation. That's why I even advised them, but I also advised them that it's not worth it to continue to deal with this when we can come get a conditional use permit, figure out what conditions need to be placed on everything, on their operations or on what they were doing, for lack of a better word, be neighborly and to avoid the legal process.
So you're saying the citation is in suspension right now? Is that
Yeah,
what you're-
I don't believe that the prosecutors actually dismissed the case.
Okay. And then this is the first I'm hearing about a history of, I guess, they've come to my colleague JP Deakins of neighbors complaining, but do we know how far back people have been, the complaints have gone? I know you mentioned the citation was in May. I'm just trying to get a sense of the timeline here.
Yeah.
There's a timeline in the packet.
Okay.
The attachments, I believe, that the planning department put
JP
together.
Ussery.
Thank you very much. I just have an easy question. And it was stated many times that there'd be one employee and one parking. Why were there 7 vehicles in the picture?
That lot has been divided into 3 separate lots, so parcels. So there is, on that lot, there is 1, 2, 3 personal vehicles. So in each house, there's one family, and their house, there's 2 families. So a lot of those are personal vehicles. They're not employees. They're not employee vehicles.
Okay, because they were all trucks parked at the shop. So I was just trying to figure out how that.
Yes, my brother is currently living with my parents right now. He owns a dually truck. My husband owns a dually truck. My dad owns a dually truck, so that's 3 trucks, personal trucks. So there will be only an additional one that's used for the business, because my dad uses his work truck and as personal too. So that's why there's so many trucks.
And then the last question is that, is there anything you can do about, I think that 11 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the morning is not good business hours. It's not being a good neighbor. Can you do anything about that?
Yes. So mainly my dad goes early in the morning, as early as 5 in the morning, because sometimes he has to, there's people that pour concrete very early in the morning, especially in the summer because it's hot, so they do it in early in the morning. I think whenever there has been times where the trucks come in late at night, it's because, like I said, my husband owns a dually truck. Sometimes we go out to family gatherings, and that's his personal truck. So we come back late in that truck, but it's not necessarily because he's coming from work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. Just to be clear, you're not operating a business, you're storing equipment. And all the trucks that are there are personal vehicles, except for one that your father uses. So the noise and hours of operation have nothing to do with your business because you're not operating a business? Is this correct?
That's correct.
So there's no hours of operations to disturb your neighbors, other than going back and forth at a private citizen hours of going home, correct?
That's correct. Anyone that drives a dually could, by all accounts,
Oh,
have
yes, I
complaints
know.
for a noise ordinance, so, or a noise nuisance, whatever you want to call that. So
But you can't restrict a personal vehicle.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I just want just points of clarification. I just want to be clear on what the operation is and that there's no hours of operation to disturb the neighbors. It's just going back and forth personally to your home and to wherever in the city. Is that understanding what you're communicating to us?
The operation of the business on the property is simply bringing trailers that don't make noise other than when they're actually at work sites.
And how many trailers?
There's 2. Right.
Two pump trailers.
You may see photos of 3 trailers, but they have personal trailers as well. Her brother has a trailer to haul stuff as well. But the work trailers that, for all accounts, are not personal and cannot be categorized as agricultural would be the 2 pump trailers.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, do we, J.P. Wilson?
I'm sorry, I just need to make sure I'm understanding. You guys are committing to do the additional items that planning has asked for if you are approved. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the folks who are opposed to start coming. Thank you.
I was going to make clarification, excuse me. I
Go
don't
ahead,
speak
Don.
a lot, but I will tonight maybe. Good evening, Sam Otto, Washington County Planning Department. So they came in back in 2020, June 2020, and applied for a land split. So it's 6.2 acres being split like 3 ways. They applied the same month or the following month for like 3 addresses to be used as homes. So they built like 2 homes. As much as I like, everyone comes with a CV to be approved. Sometimes it's like it's hard because it's like there is give and take. So that like 3rd piece, which is like the one like Mrs. Serrano's dad like operating from, it had a pad, concrete pad that was supposed to be a house. That's what they told me multiple times. And then out of nowhere, this like warehouse like started like showing up, and they had like citation by the environmental department. Mr. Mike Hart, before he passed away, he's been there like a couple of times, and they had like citation as well, like for environmental reasons. Andrew went over there. Andrew Coleman, our like officer, environmental officer, went there like a couple of times. They cleaned up everything. They had like lots of material like from the job sites, and it's been cleaned. And like I appreciate everything they've done. So we start like receiving complaints from like multiple neighbors back in like October like of 2021. We were like extremely busy. We had like difficult times in the department, so I made like the first contact with them over the phone, and then like I visited in December, and that's what you saw. So I talked to Ms. Serrano, and she was like very responsive, and I told her like, so I know it's like the holidays, everything, let's think about it like next year. By the beginning of like January, nothing happened until like we sent the mailers like to them to make sure that like they understand that if it's not agricultural or residential, it has to be a conditional use permit, and that's like our ordinance we sent to almost everyone. The problem is most of the emails we sent to them came back with because they don't have a mailbox, a receptacle, and that's one of the requirements for getting an address. You have like to present like the address so the post office can be able like, to deposit. So I made like other like visits with them and explained everything, and I told her like I will provide you with the paperwork, and she emailed me back, and I did. I sent everything, explained everything over the phone, and said like, hey, whatever you need, just let me know. I can help out. And then they never stopped, and that's the issue. They never stopped before like applying for a conditional use permit. That's why we had to send like, the cease and desist, and that's that's like a procedural thing. We don't have like an enforcement like body in the department, so we utilize the sheriff's office, and thanks for their partnership. And they took care of this. Like I guess like they made like 2 citations for like interactions with them, explained everything. And I guess that's the only thing that like one of the things that didn't sit well with the planning board, that like they received a cease and desist before they apply, and then they applied back. Like they waited like from April to receive that mail. Like the cease and desist, and applied in June, and that was like, it's too long to act. Compatibility is like the biggest deal, I guess, in this, because like the driveway, it's not just like narrow. It's a private driveway that leads to the homes, and it's shared by everyone else of the neighbors. And I consulted with the road department. I was told like anything beyond 25 foot, like from the main road or like the county road, it's a civil matter between like the property owner, so we don't get like involved in it. And that's one of the things when they said like fence, no fence, width. That's not like we don't regulate this. It's like beyond our regulations. Welfare. One of the comments on like the comments I received from the neighbors. One of those times like they had. One of the trailers just like got disconnected and like run down, like almost like hit a house. They had like multiple fires there, burning like trash from like job sites. The fire department had to go there. Once again, as much as I like to see everyone being approved, sometimes it's hard, and the communication was like was not the greatest. But other than that. We normally ask the applicants when they apply or like operating anything 4 questions. Do you have employees? Do you have like trucks in and out? Do you have deliveries? And do you have a sign? So they have employees and they have trucks in and out. And personal vehicle with a trailer and a gooseneck backhoe, it doesn't count like as a personal vehicle, I believe. So, thank you. Question? Yes.
J.P. Dennis, then J.P. Deacons, J.P. Real Stafford.
Thank you, Judge. I fault us a little bit on this. It's hard to have a lot of rules for the county. I grew up here 71 years, so I know how it's gone from country to suburban to city, all in just a few years. So some of it I take, or we should take credit for, bad credit. Was a land cannot be locked.
No,
you can't have a land locked.
It's a state law, you can't, yeah.
Why is the road so narrow? We should have had a 65-foot
It's a private road, so it's like, it's whatever like in the deed.
How was the land sold without an access?
It has an access.
How big is the access?
It's, I guess, like it's 30 foot like wide. That's how it's supposed to be.
How wide?
30 foot. That's what the, I guess that's what the requirement is. I don't know if they have the easement written in their like deed or not.
Well, you made me do 65. And I just had one lot. So I question in my mind, why do we not have universal rules on this? Because someone who owns their land, they decide to split it up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't regulate it then, it never gets regulated. And so I understood what the city of, or what Farmington area, growth area was doing. They were saying, no, we've got a plan for the future, what you may do, not what you're doing right now. Never put a road on it. But it exists because I had to have it in order to buy the property, because it could not be landlocked, even though I own the land on the right, the left, and all the way to the highway. I bought another lot, and I had to put a 65-foot access on it.
Yeah, I do agree, but like,
So
I wish we can do those regulations.
I was living by a strict rule, and I'm saying to you is why do we not have rules about that for others so that these situations don't come up?
I mean, we don't make the rules. I mean, like, we just go like by the land development. That's the planning department purpose. Whatever like is being developed on that land as is, and everything else is like written by the deed or title company. So we don't require anything beyond the 30-foot like access easement. It depends on like the length of the easement itself and how far it goes and like how wide is the street.
So did you say 30 foot?
Yes, it has to be if it's written like in the easement as with the deed.
So I'm thinking the neighbor doesn't want you to come in there and bulldoze down their trees on that beautiful lane to make a bigger access for them to have. So the neighbors might be
Once again, I mean, anything is beyond the 25-foot like right of way from the county road. It's like a civil matter. It's not like for us like to decide for them. Yeah.
Okay, we need to think about that because the county's growing so fast. I know some people don't want mining pits by their house, and I know that some people, you know, hey, I could look at the beautiful mountains at one time, and now I've got 100 houses all blocking the way.
Yep.
So can't take up tonight's time for that, but anyway, thanks, sir.
J.P. Deacons and then J.P. Rio Stafford.
Remind me, what was the planning board count, the vote count?
I believe it was 6-1.
Thank you.
J.P. Rio Stafford.
Okay, so let me understand this. You're saying that they had 3 citations, 2 from the county and 1 environmental citation?
It's 2 citations. We send them like 2 letters to explain to them like the regulations and like the zoning. Okay. And they got like 2 citations from the county, I guess, sheriff's department. Okay. And but like all in all, like they had like with those 2 citations, another 2 visits from the sheriffs to explain to them, like, yeah, we send you citation, you have like just to follow through and apply for a CUP.
Okay, but you also mentioned that they have this other environmental citation.
Yeah, I mean that was like before they applied for, and that was I guess it was like some time like in either 2020 or like 20. No, yeah, it's 2020 before like I made contact with them.
Okay, and it sounds like that one was cleared up, or
they cleared up like the mess, and
right.
I guess like the citation it was incited by like one of the neighbors, like I don't know which one, but they called and says like, hey, they're burning construction material, and that's why.
Okay, and that was taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
J.P. Washington.
Thank you, guys. Oh, more.
Thank you, Judge Wood. So I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that there were complaints from multiple neighbors, which I'm assuming is what started all of this. When they spoke, they said that they believed that there was one neighbor that was the complainant. Do you remember how many neighbors complained?
Well, the whole area, we notified like the entire neighborhood, which is like 10 of them. We received about like, was it mentioned like 8 in the presentation? So there you go, all neighbors.
Okay. Second question, you mentioned that from the time that they received the cease and desist, that it took too long to act.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the county policy in terms of that?
We normally,
is there a certain amount of time that you have?
I'm not sure, like Brian can correct me, but I don't think like we've ever like counted anything, but whenever we send something, we give them like 10 to 15 days to act on it, and it's written in the letter most, I mean, I don't have the copy, but I believe I gave them like 2 weeks or like 15 days. We've had like cease and desist sent before, like to multiple projects. It's the second day. They just like stop because they know they're like in violation, or at least they don't want to have to pay the fine, which is like $200 a day. But we never enforce like the $200 a day because I know they had good intentions, and it might be like the miscommunication part, but something should have been done like at least like sooner or faster than that.
Okay, I just wanted to understand the too long to act, and so they were notified of the amount of time that they should respond. Okay, thank you.
And once again, nothing against anyone. I would love to see that like CUP being approved.
All right, opponents, please come.
My name is Doug Gramling, and I'm a lawyer in Fayetteville, and I represent probably the complaining neighbor. I don't know. I represent Brandon and Brittany Melton, and they have that easement that you saw there. That's their driveway, actually, and they came to see me about the use of the easement because it had been damaged with this heavy trucks and whatnot. So they got some advice from me, and we're still dealing with that easement. I'll deal with Mr. Myers on that probably in court. But I got an email from the Meltons that said, we've been called away on business. We're out of town. They're having quorum court meeting. Can you show up and let them know we still object? And so here I am. I listened to Mr. Myers. He did a good job on his presentation, and so I feel woefully unprepared. I can't answer questions, or I can try to answer questions for the Meltons because I've gotten that information as a part of the easement lawsuit that's sort of bubbling up between the parties. I will tell you that the Meltons have indicated to me that this has continued. The use of this for the business has continued. Heavy equipment continues to go up and down, and I don't have a presentation, but I've got pictures of heavy equipment, dump trucks, and looks like paving equipment and trailers with construction rubble, going up and down their driveway, and it's still being used. And they have a security camera, and they provided me with so many pictures, I quit looking. And this goes on from, as you've already heard, from 4 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. So this it's disturbing to them that they're dealing with this noise. They also have had, I know their sheriffs have been out there, I think, for the burning of some of the waste out there and some of the dumping. I advised them to get a hold of the EPC&E, or the EPA, state version of the EPA. I don't know what's come of that, but I know that that's been an issue. I think my clients are worried that they have not complied. Ever since Mr. Lester sent the cease and desist, they've not complied. And they feel like, continually, and they feel like that will continue if they're approved for this permit, that, they'll continue not to comply with county regs. So they wanted to be clear that they object to the conditional use permit. They're worried about that easement area. They have paved that, and that has been damaged by the heavy equipment. They have dust. My clients have a pool in their backyard, and it doesn't work out very well because it's pretty constant dust back there. And they're just, they're worried about their land values more than anything else. So that's what I've got. I'll be happy to try to answer questions regarding the Meltons if you'd like.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. What evidence do you have proving who caused damage to the easement, seeing that the neighbor has a pontoon boat? I mean, how can you prove that it was this family who actually caused the damage to the easement and no one else?
I think there are a couple things. One, there is, you're right, you'd almost have to have an expert on pavement come testify what causes this damage. But, I've got...
Doesn't unseasonable rains, we had this past spring, cause road erosion?
I this is what I can tell you. I can tell you I have pictures of the pavement that has started breaking up, and I have pictures of heavy equipment going over this same easement. When I say heavy equipment, it's more than a dually. And
Well, can you specify exactly what the heavy equipment is? Because
Well-
I would really like to know.
I've got a picture, and I don't know heavy equipment well enough to say. It looks like a bulldozer on a trailer. And
Is
I'll
it a
be happy-
backhoe or a bulldozer? Or,
It's from so far away, I'm not sure.
so in order for it to fit on a trailer, you're talking about a bulldozer, what size?
Bulldozer, what size? I don't know. All I've got's the picture. So,
Okay,
And-
moving on. Also, when you say that there is noise going back and forth from 4:30 in the morning, I do believe the young lady, and I'm sorry, I don't remember their last name, said that her father gets up at 4:30 in the morning and gets things going and starting. I tell you what, my neighbor across the street has a pickup with a horrible muffler, and we can tell every Sunday morning, 5:30, he is going to church. And that's just a pickup. That's an old pickup. But if there's not a business being operated, I don't see what the issue is for a private citizen to drive their truck back and forth and have the freedom and the liberty to go to Walmart if they wanted to, or wherever at any time of the day. And I don't think they need to ask permission to go up and down the road.
I would agree with you. I think the Meltons would probably say that this is far more than somebody going to church on Sunday morning early in the morning or whatever.
Well, if
This
you're
is-
going to work.
This is at like 4 in the morning, and I do have video from the security camera, and I have seen that, so I can
And he's
relate.
going to work?
I can say that this was heavy equipment with a trailer that you could hear over on the security camera. You could hear the loud noises of them going,
To
on the
work.
easement. Well,
Okay, well, it sounds like he's got a storage, he's storing his equipment, he's putting it on his trailer, and he's going to the work site to operate. So there hasn't been established that there's actual business being operated in that storage area. Because there's not, it's just a storage.
I
And
think-
that's where y'all are losing me.
okay, and I two things. One, I always feel like I've got to give a disclaimer. I didn't come, I apologize. I wish I had
Okay.
more proof, but I can tell you this is what I know. I know these pictures they provided show multiple vehicles. I know that they complain that this is far more than just one truck and
Well,
one
they didn't
employee.
say it was just one truck. They also said that they've got 3 families out there.
And I'm referring to the business. I'm
Okay.
just saying they have more equipment than just the one truck. And I'm saying they have more than one employee. They have they've identified 3 different businesses or different names that they operate under. I don't know if it's just the one family. It could be just the one family, but they use 3 different names. I know that.
Okay, as far as burning, oh my gosh, even in the city of Springdale, people burn stuff on a beautiful day without permission. Well, there's not supposed to right now, but they have. And people dump out in Lake Fayetteville all the time. And sometimes people say, okay, I won't do that anymore. And you try to give your good citizens the benefit of the doubt. Okay, don't do that. You need a permit to burn. But then there is, I go back to, if there's not a business being operated,
I think they would dispute that.
well, what business is being operated? They are making concrete there in the storage thing. Is that what they're saying? They're producing concrete?
It's a construction company, and I think what they're referring to is the hauling of this rubble. I've seen pictures, trailers full of rubble and waste, and I've seen that go on there, and they they object to that being it's dumped there on the property. That's where I referred them to the DPC&E. So that is one indication that it's a business being operated. That and the multiple trucks.
Well, that's a
and-
good
And
assumption.
the activity. And everything is to a degree. And, you know, maybe one-time burning might be acceptable, but this has gone on for a year and a half now. And what they really take issue with is, why won't they follow what the county has said? And it's gone on up through today. That's why they emailed me and said, can you show up?
I understand that. I don't understand why some people don't follow the rules in the city and they speed 84 miles an hour down Turner when the speed limit's 30, and I just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some people that do and other people that don't get it, and I understand that. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Judge.
Any other people want to speak against? Oh, all right, J.P. Lemming, I'm sorry.
I just want to make one comment about everybody's burning. In 1972, they passed a law that you cannot burn in a burn barrel. You cannot burn construction debris. It's illegal. So you don't need to be burning. And I know Mr. Harps, he's been to there's so many tickets, the sheriff could stay busy writing tickets all day long every day. And then people's going to burn, and they're going to get in trouble. That's just part of it. It ain't supposed to be, but it's just part of it. That's going to happen. I believe these folks are operating a commercial business out of their home, 100%. I do believe that. And this is not just these folks doing it. Washington County's got a problem all across the county. There's a lot of them doing it. Mm-hmm. And this CUP business that we're in, we need to get out of it, or we need to change it, because the fact is we have no law officers that can go out and control it, and we don't have the personnel to be on top of all this. So we either need to get deeper into it, or we need to get out of it. Mm-hmm. But I believe these folks are operating illegal. I believe they need to come into compliance just like everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I think if good stewardship from them and their neighbors, everybody get together and work together, I think we can work it out. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going to help one another work it out, it ain't going to happen. Mm-hmm. Your heavy equipment you're talking about, yes, the road's going to break away with your little boat. Your little boat don't weigh nothing. Your backhoes, your bigger trucks, your 1 tons. The legal law is 102 inches wide. You can argue all night what it is. The legal law is 102 inches wide on equipment. So yes, this road's narrow. It's going to break away. Yes, it's going to give problems. So they're going to have to deal with it together. They're going to have to work together to make it work, or they're going to have to get apart. It ain't going to work. Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. You're speaking against. Come on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Melton, and I currently live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and soon to be moving into our new home that's being built at 10096 Sherry Road. Directly across from the house is the parties that are trying to obtain a CUP permit for running their business. They moved into that area sometime in 2020, and this area is zoned only for residential and agricultural use. Soon after, they started using their land as a truck depot with employees to run their concrete business. They were warned on March the 9th, 2020 to stop because they didn't have the proper commercial permits to do so and to apply for a CUP permit. They did not stop. They were given 2 citations from the Washington County Sheriff's Office for CUP violations, and they were issued a cease and desist in April 2022. They did not stop running their business. Shortly after, they did file for a CUP permit. All the while, they did not stop. They continued running their commercial business. Then on August 26th, this year, 2 months ago, we came to the Quorum before the Planning and Development Committee, and they were denied their CUP permit. Of course, they had 30 days to appeal the decision, so toward the end of that 30-day window, they did put in an appeal. All the while, they did not stop, continued running their business. And now here we are sitting in front of the appeals because they want a CUP permit to run their business. I understand that they are claiming on that appeal that they are not running a commercial business, and that the panel in August made a mistake, an error, and did not give them one. So my question to these folks are, So you're not running a commercial business, and yet you paid to apply for a commercial permit, but you got denied, and then you had to appeal the denial, and yet you're still wanting a CUP permit when you're saying you're not running a business. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. They have ignored and defied the law for many months now, and they think nothing of it. If you move into this country, this state, this county, this city, this neighborhood, you have to abide by the laws, its statutes, its covenants, and its requirements. They are operating a business unlawfully in a residential area. And for all the above reasons, I ask this panel to deny the CUP again. Thank you for your time.
Milton, come forward. Doc, can you move the green chair? Well, go ahead. We're gonna swap the chairs out.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you. My name is Tommy Ishmael, and I live at 17925 Kate Farm Road in Springdale. I personally live just north and west of the property this hearing is being held for. I've read the Planning Board ZBA decision appeal provided to me by your office, and I have the following comments I'd like to share with you. First, my thinking is that all CUP applications must stand alone on their own merits, independent of any other applicant. To make a comparison between a plumber, a lawn care worker, a house worker, and a concrete pumping company is simply laughable on its face. A CUP application must stand alone as intended by county zoning laws and meet the intent and purposes of our zoning laws as laid out in county ordinances. My understanding is that it is your responsibility to determine whether or not an application meets the intents and purposes of the ordinance. As residents of Washington County, we depend on the integrity and clearness of our rules, statute, laws, or other guidance from our leadership so we can understand and obey the guidance set forth by your office and to others in government. We expect others to follow them, and we expect you to enforce them. Second, this appeal states there was no evidence individuals on the property were there for work-related purposes rather than personal. This statement is belied by the fact that there are numerous photographs and eyewitness testimony to the contrary. There are numerous photographs showing substantial business activity on the property in question, and there's no possible way concrete pumping equipment trucks can be confused for a simple workman parking his pickup truck at home after a hard day's work. That dog just don't hunt. Third, the applicant herself laid out her intent in her CUP application, quote, with the intent of storage of equipment, machineries, and trailers in existing shop. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The bottom line is laid out by the applicant herself. We sit there and listen all day and all night to the rattle banging of trucks and trailers going down this road. That's not a workman returning home for a cold beer at the end of his workday. I stand in opposition to this application. As I mentioned in my previous letter to your office, this business is precisely why we have zoning laws, to prevent disrespectful and non-compliant businesses from destroying our community, wrecking our property values, and in general, making home life miserable. We've built a wonderful neighborhood out there and have blended into the agricultural area precisely as the Washington County Planning Board intended. J&J Concrete has not done so. They disregard zoning laws, they do as they please, and they extend no common courtesies to anybody. I ask for your support in denying this CUP appeal and preventing J&J Concrete from illegally continuing a commercial concrete business in a residential and agricultural zone, and I do thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you, guys.
You speaking against?
Good evening. My name is Bryce Gerlach. I live at 20074 Sherry Road. I'm in the shop house that is directly to the south of the applicants. The applicant's lawyer earlier was talking about all the commercial businesses that are operating within the proximity. Well, all of those have direct access to Highway 412, which is a, commercial viable road. As you get off of Highway 412 and extend to the south on Sherry Road, to call it a 2-lane road is a stretch. It's hard pressed to get 2 normal-sized vehicles, let alone 2 vehicles that would be dualies. Very familiar with dualies growing up on a farm in Nebraska. This is the primary problem, in my opinion, is safety. Since we had our deal back in August, my fiance was forced off of the road because one of these trucks was oncoming down the center of the road. So she essentially had to take what little of a ditch there is just to get onto our property. If you guys have, I'm assuming none of you have been out there, but as you come into our driveway off of Sherry Road, it is a blind driveway. You cannot see vehicles pulling out. So when they are operating a trailer every day, 4 trailers, if you count the passes out and the passes in, it's 4 times every day. You have trailers trying to get into a narrow driveway onto a narrow road. So they have to take the whole of the road to get off of the driveway and have to, take their time and get off the driveway. And when there's traffic going, people driving too fast sometimes, it's not a matter of if an accident occurs, it's a matter of when an accident occurs. And this should be y'all's responsibility to make sure no one gets hurt. As we come in off of Sherry Road into the parcels that are split up, you'll turn to the south on the rock road that I built, that I paid to build. You'll notice that the distinct difference between the north and the south of that road, from where their business is operating, the degradation of the road to the north is significantly more than to the south. And that's a road I have to drive on every day. I have worked with them before to put rock down this spring, but if you went out there today, you'd see the road to the south still has quite a bit of rock on. Up to the north, if we had a bad rain, we'd be in a mud hole. So that is, it's top of my mind as well. To say that it isn't a business being operated there and that it's just storage, that's inaccurate. Just the other week, they've been having some problems with one of their pumps, I assume, because they're out there till 9 o'clock working on it with the shop door wide open, trying to fix it, I assume. Stuff breaks down, I get it. But it's not just storage. They're working on their equipment there, fixing it, cleaning it. They're just cleaning one last night. They're out there power washing around 6 o'clock or so. Noise at all hours, that's been touched on. I think you need to have adequate, utilities out there. There are none. It's off of 2 easements just to get there. I've had a lot of trash blow onto my property from this property. I don't know if it's, the regular, just living there, or if it's the concrete pumping company. I'm not saying what is what. But then I'm just going to talk about the costs that I've incurred to try to keep my peace and quiet that I moved out to the country for. I'm originally from the country. I wanted to live out in the country and have peace and quiet. And I've had to, by this time next week, we'll have put $10,000 of my own money to create guards with the trees, to put up a fence, just so I can protect my privacy, my quiet, etc., from the noise that comes in at all hours, and trash, a trailer that was unhinged and rolled through my property. So I think all these, hopefully you can see that there is a business operating here. They've been out of compliance. I don't know if they would do everything that's in the CUP that they need to do. They've been slow to act on everything else. So hopefully you see my side. Thank you.
Anyone speaking against? Okay. Court, we move on to item 10, and it's the pleasure of the court. What's the action you're going to take on the appeal? J.P. Ecke.
Can you give us a
briefly, it's going to be
point of clarification
so
on,
it's to approve the denial, which is supporting the denial by the planning board, or it's to overturn or approve, deny what the planning board did.
so to deny is to approve the CUP, to deny it would be to,
No.
okay,
Good.
please
You're
clarify.
either going to approve the CUP or deny, because it's recommended, it has been recommended for denial by the board. So you either approve the CUP recommended for denial, or you deny the CUP recommended for denial.
And that's tonight?
Yes.
Well, it'll be
it's
on at least
first
its
reading.
first reading, based on a motion made by the court.
So it'll go to the second reading
Next month.
next month. I'd like for it to go to the second reading, just personally, so that
Well,
way
you
we
got-
have time.
There's no motion on the floor, so
No.
we're still waiting on what is the pleasure of the court. J.P. Deacons, what's your point of order? J.P. Pine?
Did we misunderstand, was J.P. Eckie moving to suspend the rules and move to a second reading?
But there's not an action yet, and that's what I think J.P. Deacons is about to do. J.P. Deacons?
I move to deny the permit, recommended for denial by the planning board.
All right, there's a motion to deny the permit, the CUP. And there's a second by J.P., who's that? J.P. Lemming. All right, any discussion? Any discussion? J.P. Eckie?
I'm conflicted with this because I believe in property rights, and these people have bought quite a bit of land out there. And it's difficult for us to just make an armchair decision on what people can do and not do out with their property, and to determine whose truck is and what isn't when they say it's not, but yet somebody else says it is. You come down to property rights, and that's what makes America better than everybody else, that we are able to buy our own property and do with it as we please. I agree with Justice Dennis. There needs to be a uniform rule for everybody, but right now, to allow other businesses to continue, and I don't see how you can run a concrete business out of your garage or your storage, because you need to do it on site. And I still have questions about that. So I'm against denying it. I just believe in property rights. Thank you.
J.P. Deacons?
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'm troubled by those comments because, I think we all believe in liberty and property rights, but we also have laws established by this county. There has been a very long and thorough process going on here without any resolution from the applicant. The planning board denied this 6-1. After all that thoroughness, I don't see the armchair quarterbacking here or whatever that comment was. I'm all about property rights too. If we're not going to follow this rule, though, let's throw out planning altogether. That's what we're here. I mean, if we can't stop this in the name of benefiting the neighbors, which I'm conflicted about this too, then let's just get rid of planning. There's no reason to have ordinances. Thank you, Judge Wood.
J.P. Washington? Did you turn it off? I did see your name. Go ahead, J.P. You turned it off? Do you have a question or comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Yeah, I mean, I'm having difficulty with this because to me, this all comes down to the definition of what does it mean to operate a business out of your home or to be an offsite business. I mean, it feels like this kind of falls into sort of like this weird sort of gray area in between the two. But I mean, essentially, this is a business where they do the majority of their work off-site. They go off, they drive their trucks and do work, on-site at construction sites and other places like that, and only bring their vehicles home, it sounds like, to wash them or work on them, which is, what anybody else might do if you were, a painter or a lawn person or something like that. So I too, actually, after thinking about this, am also inclined to approve this conditional use permit. That's kind of where I've landed on this.
J.P. Washington.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I am inclined to approve this for a number of reasons. First of all, we hear those who oppose the approval of the CUP say, well, they're operating a business. And then they're saying, but now they're trying to get a CUP, so why do you need a CUP if you don't have a business? So it seems to me that they're trying to do what needs to be done, but then that's not sufficient either. We have a lot of allegations of all this additional equipment, but we haven't seen a video, we haven't seen a photograph. And so basically this is coming down to the word of one person versus the other. So the applicants are here tonight, but those who support the denial of it, where is the evidence of this? So you're saying that there's all this extra equipment. They're saying that it's not. I mean, it's so very confusing, but I just think that we don't have any compelling evidence that shows that the business is being run. The applicants say that it isn't. They're trying to do the right thing, so I really don't see the issue in approving this.
Any other? All right, before we go to the public comments, that's right, because it's only on the first read. Read the
title.
Ordinance.
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for denial by the Planning and Zoning Board.
All right, it's on its first reading, so we'll move on to second reading next month, unless the court moves the second and suspend the rule and move to the second. Okay, they'll move on to next month's agenda for a second reading. Item 12, we go to our consent agenda. Council, will you read those by title only?
Item 1 on the consent agenda is an ordinance anticipating revenue totaling $1,082,000 in the Crisis Stabilization Unit Grant Fund and appropriating $1,082,000 from the Crisis Stabilization Unit Grant Fund to the other professional services line item in the CSU Grant Fund budget for 2022. Item 2 is an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $14,804 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating $14,804 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the JAG Grant budget for 2022. Item 3 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $31,167 in the JDC Grant Fund and appropriating $31,167 from the JDC Grant Fund to the Juvenile Detention Center Grant and Aid 2022-2023 budget for 2022. Item 4 is an ordinance appropriating the total amount of $18,115.62 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the Election Commission budget for 2022. Item 5 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $13,410 in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund and appropriating $13,410 from the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund to various line items in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant budget for 2022. Item 6 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $21,450 in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund and appropriating $21,450 from the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund to various line items in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant budget for 2022. Item 7 is an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $135,259.70 in the FEMA COVID-19 Project Fund and appropriating $135,259.70 to various line items in the FEMA Grant Fund for 2022. Item 8 is an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $120,091.37 in the FEMA COVID-19 Project Fund and appropriating $120,091.37 to various line items in the FEMA Grant Fund for 2022. Item 9 is an ordinance anticipating revenues of $95,000 in the Arkansas Heritage Preservation Program Grant Fund and appropriating $95,000 to other professional services line item in the AHPP budget for 2022-2023. And item 10 is an ordinance establishing the Innovation Grant Fund and appropriating reserve from said fund to the other professional services line item in the Buildings and Grounds budget for 2022.
before. You see it, yeah, they get in the doors. Let's grab the other door as well. Okay, J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I move passage of the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion? Any discussions, any public comments? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Myra?
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Pass.
All right, thank you, Ms. Myra. Item 13, Counselor, you read that one by title only.
An ordinance establishing the Washington County annual budget for the fiscal and calendar year 2023.
Before I ask J.P. Deacons go forth, again, a lot of energy and a lot of work has gone on into this budget, and we do this every year, and here's where we are at this point in time. The salary administration part has been something that has been presented to the court for about 10 years now, and every year they've been asked to move the market because we've continued to fall behind in keeping up with the salaries for our employees. In the beginning of this process, I asked our team to go ahead and work toward actually adopting the market, some kind of plan to adopt the market so we somewhat get caught up. We did that. We presented a plan to you guys. You guys said, well, first of all, we asked from Acuity to come through, and they did a nationwide study. It was broad. It was far, far higher than anything that's in this area. We asked to look at Pulaski County, Benton County, Fayetteville, and again, with Johansson looking at and doing Benton County, we've narrowed it down to look at Benton County, which was how can we be somewhat close to Benton County, if not the same as Benton County, given the similarities in the market, and they did. And that was presented, except it was almost a 10.8 at the presentation, and the court was saying, how are we going to be able to sustain something like that? Can you guys reduce and look back at that? Benton County is probably going to be looking at a 4%, bring that down to 4%. And so, again, last Tuesday at the finance and budget, it was presented by our HR team. That's that reduction. A lot of work that was put into that, and they talked about the fact that it was going to be title to title because they did not have the opportunity and the time to do it job description by job. I've done this world of HR, and that's exactly what you want to do, is spend all your time walking through and spending time understanding what those job descriptions as well as titles to make sure that you're there's some parity in it. However, they talked about that, they showed what they did, and they presented that to the community, to the JPs, and today it's before you. I support the work that they've done. I know that there's been a lot of back and forth, but every month we come to the court with personnel requests to say, how do we adjust this? How do we move this? Probably 2 years ago, the Sheriff's Department presented something and said, we're just losing everybody to Fayetteville. And what did we do? We finally did something to move that market to support our folks in the Sheriff's Department. Well, for me, I'm responsible for the entire county, and as much as I was excited about the sheriff's folks getting some parity and really being able to this year finally get our staff almost fully staffed, that's exciting. But I also know I got another 300 employees that did not. We finally got our road department getting some parity, and now we're down maybe a couple of people. Again, we hadn't had that in years, and that's because we had not done anything in 10 years to move our market and move our ranges for our employees. Asked HR to do that, they presented that, and that's where we are. You guys asked those elected in particular. I remember Assessor Hill saying, hey, I don't agree, I have some, and they asked you to get that information to our HR department so they can look at that amendment and bring that to you guys. So tonight, again, on the agenda is the salary administration plan that was presented to you guys at Finance and Budget. And I used the word passed. It was not passed. You're correct. It was moved out of the Finance and Budget with the budget. Okay, maybe the word is not passed, but it came out of the. Okay, so well, and you'll get a chance to share that. It moved out of. It did not get tabled. It did not go back to committee. It came forth to the, and it's on your agenda for tonight. You have the opportunity to help support our employees. You heard our employees. You heard those who are opposed to it, but the electeds are asked to bring an amendment to get it to HR. And so tonight, HR, JP Deacons, and Finance and Budget will be presenting that. I encourage you to look at what was presented last week and tonight and do well by our employees. With that, Patrick Deacons, JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Before we get into HR presentation, I have a piece of open business that was remaining from budget that we need to amend the budget. So I need to make a motion to amend that. Coroner Morris had requested $200,000 in capital expenditures for vehicles for next year. In working with us, I really commend him and I want to thank him to accommodate the salary administration, the decisions we have to make. He lowered that to an ask of $110,000. And then in the meantime, he also has found a vehicle that he would like to go ahead and purchase right now. That is item number 19 on our agenda, so we'll address that later. But I would like to amend the budget, make a motion to amend the budget to include $50,000 in capital expenditures for vehicles in the coroner's budget.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to amend the budget to $50,000 for the coroners. A second by, who was that? JP Ussery. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, so now we are, again, you want to read that one as amended, right?
Yeah, it'll be as.
All right. Okay, JP Deacons. Item 13, as amended. Oh, I'm sorry. Duncan, Deacons.
Yeah, and I'm up for the pleasure of the court. If we want to hear a presentation from our HR department, I think that's what we were here for tonight.
Ms. Patty, is she here? Dr. Burchett?
Thank you, Judge.
J.B. Duncan.
Before we get into the salary piece as well, I also wanted to bring an amendment to the budget as well. So I'd asked the Sheriff's Department to bring, to essentially stack rank and prioritize the different budgetary requests they had made, for the capital outlay requests they had made for this year. The original capital requests were $1,365,000 from the three different departments within the Sheriff's budget. With that, what I received from Major Tabor, we were requesting, or I am requesting, that we amend the budget to include the mobile video recorders for both the enforcement side and the jail detention side. Each department requested $168,000, so the total request would be an additional $336,000 capital expenditure. So I move that we amend the budget to add the mobile video recorders for both of those departments to the final budget for 2023.
All right, there's a motion to receive the Sheriff's Amendment, a second by J.P. Wilson. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, so that's amended. J.P. Rios Stafford and then J.P. Ecke.
Yes, thank you, Judge Wood. You know, I just have a point of order on this, is that when the Finance and Budget Committee met last week, they declined basically to take up salary administration question and left it as is before then going on and passing the rest of the budget on to the full quorum court. So my understanding is that in order to, we would need to have an amendment to get the salary administration at this time added into the budget in order to start hearing about this tonight?
JP Ecke.
I do have a point of order. After listening to the Budget and Finance YouTube video, when you go back, it wasn't clear to me exactly what was being forwarded to the full quorum court. And I listened to it several times, listening to Justice Johnson, Pond, and myself, and other concerns that there was too many errors in the presentation that was made, and objections were made by the elected officials, presented by Assessor Hill. So the recommendation was that you all work together on a cooperative, collaborative report, and that is the report that we will listen to at the quorum court. It is my understanding that this presentation is not the collaborative, cooperative report. So therefore, that is the one that was advanced to the full quorum court, not this one. Secondly, in 2021, when I was chairman of the Budget and of the Personnel Committee, we passed an unprecedented 10% salary range structure move. We did that in 2021, bringing everybody up to 2021 market values. And to say that we didn't do that and we were still lagging so far behind because a market study had not been done, in my opinion, is to disparage all the work that I did as chairman to collaborate with everybody and pass this structure, that 10% structural move on top of a 3% COLA increase. That's what we did in 2021. So yes, we have had a structure move. The same presentation that was, so anyway, my point of order is there needs to be the personnel salary adjustment that was collaborated and cooperated by all the electeds is the one that was advanced to the quorum court. If we can't get a consensus on what that is, then I move that this presentation be separated from the budget, go back to personnel and Budget and Finance for thorough review, because there was never a clean copy without errors presented. And I think that's what we need to approve, is one that is error-free and everybody is on board. If not, it's not going to work. And everybody, all the employees know that as chairman of the Personnel Committee, I and our committee members worked hard to come up with a good plan for everybody. And I would rather wait till next month's meeting to approve something that everybody is pleased and on board with and can unite behind it. And I believe that that would be, yes, I made a motion to separate this and send it back to committee.
All right, we have a motion to take the salary administration plan and send it back to Personnel, Finance, and Budget. Second by, who was that? JP Hires. All right. Discussion?
I want to say one more thing. I believe that this will be a mutual gain
all right, JP
approach to solving this issue.
JP Deacons.
I'm not speaking for or opposed to the motion. I just want to, from a timing standpoint, remind everybody we're not going to have committee meetings in November because of early voting. So if we're going to refer them to committee, this would take us into December. And I'm just wanting to make everybody aware of that.
JP Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Judge Wood. I agree with Justice Deakins. If we don't have a proposal in front of us that all elected officials agree to tonight, there's no way we're going to get it done this year. We, the quorum court, will have to go to Plan B and put that off till next year. because I don't see any collaboration. My email doesn't say there's any collaboration. Thank you.
JP Hires, and then JP Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. So I realize we have early voting in November, but I think if we need to have a really important committee meeting to determine something that's this important, we could probably figure out a way to do that. Just because this room might not be available doesn't mean that we don't have an entire courthouse that would allow us to have a meeting that would determine something this important, because I do not like the idea of rushing into it. So I think that we can find a way as the governing body of Washington County to have a meeting next month to deal with this.
JP Rio Stafford, and then JP Simons.
I agree. I think there's nothing that's stopping us from having a special meeting at a time where, or a date that we don't normally have it after November 8th, the election, but within the month of November. I also agree with JP Ecky's move to push this back to committee, because there have been so many emails that we've gotten over the last 48 hours. The public hasn't seen any of this. This has all just been in our inboxes. And it's been, I was, out of town all day yesterday, where I didn't have my cell phone on me. And so I haven't had, and I worked today. Some of us have day jobs. So I haven't had time to read and absorb the last 48 hours worth of emails. And I think there's been like 50 emails we've gotten on this subject from staff, from elected officials, from everybody else. And yes, I think that we need to let this take the time to get this done right and not just get it done. I think we're on an artificial timeline in some senses. I think some people might want to get this done before the election. I will put that out there, and we really have until December 31st. I don't want to put it off till December 31st, obviously, and I do want our hardworking county employees to get the raises that they deserve, and we need to do this year. But we need to get this right, and we need to give the elected officials, I think, some time to bridge the gap and come together and figure things out, because I still need to go through my emails. I haven't made heads or tails of most of it.
JP Simons.
Thank you, Chair. I spent about 3 to 4 hours at the courthouse today meeting with both HRIT and their proposal, as well as the electeds' proposed amendments and their proposal. We have an opportunity to get this right. We are on a time frame. We made promises to our staff to get this done before a new administration and a new court. We can do this, but it does not need to be done tonight. So I'm in favor of pulling this out of the budget, having a special personnel and budget and finance meeting. And I said this on Tuesday at Budget and Finance, and I'll say it again. I'm admonishing all of the electeds to get together with HR and IT, collaborate. This does not mean send an email with your proposed amendments. Get in front of each other around a table. Make it happen for your staff and all of the employees that this affects. Close to 300. Half the county is affected by this. Put aside your feelings, get together, do your jobs, work as a team, bring something before us that we can push and keep our employees. Because if this doesn't get pushed, we're going to be losing talent.
JP Pond.
It's more of a question, and I'd like to hear from the sheriff. Might there be a place large enough to facilitate such a meeting where the public could come in and hear the meeting as it works? I believe the sheriff's department has a place large enough to facilitate such a public meeting. If he would be hospitable enough to help us with that. That might be my question to the sheriff.
happy to facilitate whatever the court requests. We'll, just a caveat, we have a lot of construction going on with the 911 consolidation, so it might be a little more condensed than normal, but our east wing, we can make available. I didn't hear all of the process, but we can facilitate it.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
JP Ecke, and then JP Johnson.
I want to make this clear. My approach and my objectives that I set out as chairman of the Personnel Committee was to bring effective change through collaboration and communication, to bridge positive relationships between the JPs and the elected officials. I believe in a mutual gain approach, and I think we can find one.
Thank you, JP Ecke.
Okay.
JP Johnson.
Are we on, Judge?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like the elected officials to keep one other thing in mind, too. We need to come up with a program that we can afford. I mean, we're talking about a $2 million plus pay increase that isn't a one-time deal, folks. It goes on for the rest of our life, and it compounds every year. So we need to keep that in mind, and we all need to think about how much that can really be. So it has to be collaborative, and it has to be reasonable.
Okay, so any other discussion? We had JP Duncan.
My mic's already queued. Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
My colleague on the court that just spoke stole my thoughts there. Ms. Burchett, what is the percent increase? I know $2 million in total. Do you know the current, I know we're not there yet, but the current proposal percentage increase?
For the entire county budget for
Yes.
including this proposal?
Yes, with just
The percentage is 55% for personnel.
a 55% increase on personnel.
Well, no, 55% total of the
Of
total
the total
budget.
county
Yes,
budget. Do you know what
yes.
the percentage is year over year, 22 to 23, to put you on the spot here?
Hold on a second. So I don't have the percentage, but I have the difference in dollars
I can calculate it then.
from 22 to 23. I think I was asked that question before.
That's great, and I'll take that.
It's $7,535,083 is the difference between 22's personnel and 2023 if this proposal that HR prepared is included in the budget.
So the new proposal is $7 million more expensive annually. The new salaries are?
Then 2022 figures, yes, that is correct.
We can't pay for that. So that's, I think, as the electeds get together in the HR department, we need to set a percentage range or a dollar figure that we're willing to go after. Because I would love to pay everybody just infinite amounts of money, but we're going to have to majorly increase taxes if we're going to pay for that. And that's not happening. So we need to align on a percentage. I would think on a typical year, we increase by 3%. So as the county is looking at a pay increase, we need to cap this and then have the departments and HR included work within a percentage to keep this thing manageable, because $7 million, I know at one point in time I saw something, it was significant double digit, it was 15 to 18%. Like that, we can't increase pay by 15 to 18%. I know we're backwards. I know we've got a lot of opportunity, but I would think anything above 8% total increase year over year in totality. And I think that's where departments need to work within that and go, okay, this person's pay range is not crazy out of whack. We're going to give them a 3% increase. This person's way underwater. We need to give them a 12% increase. And then that all needs to average out to a reasonable number, and it can't be $7 million.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. That 7 million, that 7.5, that includes roads proposal for this year as well as sheriff's department.
Okay.
So that is the total county workforce, not just this proposal.
Okay.
Okay.
do you mind providing the court, and I guess there'll be another iteration of this as you meet, 'cause it sounds like postponing this conversation is going to pass. But as this happens, provide a percentage increase year over year and a dollar figure year over year. So 2022 total budgeted personnel, 2023 proposed budgeted personnel into absolute dollars, and then a percentage increase. And my encouragement would be to try and keep the departments closely in line. So it doesn't make sense for one elected official to have their department get a 25% increase, another to get a 5%. It's like we need to balance this thing out. And then the other piece, I get we were talking about getting a meeting on the calendar. So we've got 8th as election day. We call a special meeting on the 10th, comes back in this room, they'll have equipment cleared out, I could assume, in 2 days. So I don't see the major concern here, outside of the fact that it'll be a special meeting. But I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, we're moving on to question. There's a motion on the floor to separate out the salary administration from the budget. It was seconded by JP Hires. All in favor? Those opposed? Okay, the salary administration piece is taken out. We're now just dealing with the budget. Director Burchett, thank you. We talk about this, and I've talked about this before. It's been 6 years, and I've a number of times addressed this in the court because I have a higher expectation of our JPs when they're talking to each other and having the decorum. You can disagree with ideas and actions, but to go after people, we're setting an example for our employees and for our citizens in the county. But what has happened over the past 2 weeks when our elected officials started doing that, when our JPs started doing that to employees, I admonish you to show to show respect for our employees who are out here laboring on behalf of the citizens of the counties. It's uncalled for. Again, I share this, that we have to set the example. People are moving to this area watching this county. We're growing. I mentioned that earlier. We're growing. We're one of the fastest in the nation, and people are watching how we run our government. And you do that, and yes, you have hard conversations, and yes, you can disagree with components and aspects of, but when you disrespect and go after that's uncalled for, I ask our elected official, I ask our JPs to make sure that they are operating in a manner of decorum. With that, JP Deacons, you have the floor for the budget. The only piece we did was take out There's two amendments, so it's already been read once. Okay, all right. So what was the second one? All right, so we had 2 amendments on the floor for the budget, which was the coroners and the sheriffs. Okay. Any other discussion about the budget? JP Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd like to propose a 3rd amendment. I'd like to amend the budget to put back in the special legal expenses budget for the county collector, the county circuit clerk, and the sheriff.
There's a motion to add special legal back into the budget. Is there a second? And a second by JP Hires. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. All right. Ms. Myra? What's the point of order? No. No, he was put in his actual budget, right? As a person. Yeah, as a person. So go ahead, Ms. Myra. You JP Stafford.
She's not queued up on the mic, sorry.
Go ahead, JP Stafford.
Thank you. I'd like to amend that to be just the special legal budget for the collector and the circuit clerk.
Collector and circuit court. All right. The circuit clerk. Just those 2. All right. So do we need to re-vote on that amendment?
We'll vote on her. No, her amendment is the amendment to the amendment we'll vote on.
Now.
Now, right.
Okay.
So if there's a second.
Is there a second on that one? All right, it's a second on that by JP Hires. All in favor? This is the amendment, on the amendment, so this is to amend it and to read special legal for just the circuit clerk and the collector. All in favor? Another one, JP Deacons, and then JP Simons.
Do you have the dollar amounts for those?
It's in there. Here's the budget dollars. JP Stafford.
I have those numbers. It looks like the county collector, special legal expenses was asking for, looks like between $10,000 and $20,000, and Circuit Clerk Sylvester was asking for $75,000.
You guys got those numbers? JP Ecke.
I have a question. 75,000 in the circuit clerk and 20, and that's going to come out of county general. Is that what they want, or no? Could I have some clarification on exactly what the two elected officials want?
There's a motion on the floor at JP Ecke, so they can't do that until after the vote. JP Deacons, did you have anything? Okay. There's a motion seconded by JP Hires for special legal, 75,000 circuit clerk, and then 20,000 for the collector. All in favor? Those opposed? Okay, that fails. So now we're back to the main amendment, which was the...
No, the main motion was to put special legal back into the sheriff, the collector, and the circuit clerk.
That's correct.
But the sheriff didn't, yeah, right. So, but you still have to, unless the motion is withdrawn, we'll still have to vote on the motion.
Okay, that motion has been withdrawn. All right, so now we're back to the budget with the two amendments, the coroner and the sheriff.
Unless there's a motion to, in a vote to move to the second reading, it'll stay on the first reading until the next time.
It's on its first reading. The budget with the two amendments that was offered, that was voted on tonight.
The other amendment was withdrawn?
That's correct. All right, we'll move on to then item. Yeah, they did. Yeah. Item 14, council read that one by title only.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $96,161 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating said $96,161 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the SCAP FY 2020 budget for 2022.
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a grant that the Sheriff's Department receives annually. I move passage of item 14.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? JP Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. You know, I was dismayed at the tone of the discussion around this grant that happened last week during the Budget Committee. There was implications made that if we don't accept this grant, basically that rapists and murderers are going to run wild in the streets of Springdale.
What's your point of order?
My point of order is the JP is showing disrespect. Yes, and it has nothing to do with rapists and murderers because it was taken out of context, and they know it. And I demand an apology for perpetuating something that is not true. Point of order. Stick to the ordinance.
I would
and that
love
is
to
it.
stick, you won't get an apology, and I would love to stick to the ordinance. And that is my whole point, is that we did not stick to the ordinance last week.
What is your,
She
do you have a
needs to
motion?
stay there.
JP Stafford, do you have a motion? Do you have it? I'm asking, what is your business?
Don't we have a motion on the floor already on this?
That was the reading
and
of,
this is-
yes, the discussion.
Right, so this
Okay.
is discussion.
All
So
right,
this is my
without
discussion.
pointing fingers, and again, I just talked about
Okay.
having decorum. Okay.
I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm talking about that we need to actually talk about what this grant does. Because this grant, it is not just about felonies. If it was just about felonies, that would be one thing. But this SCAP grant covers folks who are convicted solely of 2 misdemeanors and no felonies whatsoever. And the point that I wanted to bring up is that back in 2020, we had protesters outside of our jail because an artist in Fayetteville by the name of Alan Rodriguez, he's a FHS graduate, he was a DACA recipient, he's been in the U.S. here since he was 4 years old. He was being held for ICE after being picked up on a graffiti charge. Now, I think that the discussion that happened last week did not focus on what this grant actually does. And so that's why I wanted to bring this discussion back to that. I support our sheriff's department. I support the work they do. I voted for pay raises for the sheriff's department every time they've come before this quorum court. So I don't want to hear any stuff about how I don't support our sheriff's department. But the idea that rapists and murderers are going to run wild if we
JP
don't
Ray
accept this
Stafford.
grant
Just real Stafford.
is
JP
false.
Stafford, just continue to walk.
It's
You're not
insulting.
on, you're not being recognized.
It's
Are you
insulting.
done with your comments?
I'm just going to say it's insulting to the work the
JP.
sheriff's department does to keep us safe. Thank you.
Any other discussion? This public comment? No.
Yes, my name is Margaret Gilmore. I'm from Fayetteville. And I'm opposed to this grant because in a democratic country, to think that private information of where you live, where you work, who's in your family would be sold for the end result of being persecuted. And I just think when you're selling that for money, you're selling your soul. And I'm opposed to that.
Public comments?
Hi, my name's Noah Melson, and I live in Springdale. I'm here today to speak on behalf of a friend of mine who is Marshallese and is strongly against the state criminal alien assistance program. To me, it doesn't feel right for a white American-born person like myself to be speaking for people whom this actually affects, but my friend asked me to speak because they were afraid to come here, and they thought that speaking tonight might put some sort of target on their back. This is their words, not mine. This friend, who was asked to remain anonymous, wanted to express that the SCAAP would reinforce the discrimination they already face because of rhetoric and policies that cause people to fear members of their community. This policy will continue to encourage many Marshallese to not want to participate in meetings like this. This is a divisive policy that will only increase the distrust that many community members already have in our local government. A policy that allows the investigation of people who are, quote, believed to be undocumented is inherently discriminatory because of the subjective and discretionary nature of the criteria. Thank you.
Public comments?
Good evening. Thank you, Judge Wood. My name is Beth Coger. I live at 3661 Embry Drive in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I have spoken against this grant since 2019, and I'm going to continue speaking against it. Our immigrant friends and neighbors move here. Sorry, I've been contacted this week by people, by some friends from the Marshallese and the Latinx community, and they were upset about things that happened at last week's meeting, but they too, like the speaker before me, they are fearful of coming to address the court. Anyway, our immigrant friends and neighbors move here because they want a better life for themselves and their families, their children. What did you and I do to be here? I was born here. I suspect most of you too got your citizenship by being born here. The sheriff's office, in order to get this money, this $96,191 as it is this year, we have to sell information to the federal government, to ICE. That information includes the individuals who are undocumented or whom someone at the sheriff's office thinks might be undocumented. That includes their names, their release date, their suspected release date, and their home and work address. Surely you can see how, if you were an undocumented immigrant, if you didn't have the paperwork that said you could be here in this great country, how that might concern you. I have been told this week that people are afraid to go to Walmart. We should not be selling information to ICE. That is not our job. When we do that, it allows them to target our immigrant friends and neighbors. Our participation in this program invites the threat of ICE and the prospect of deportation into the lives of our immigrant neighbors. We should all want our community to be a welcoming and warm place for immigrants to call home. Immigrants make this community what it is. Accepting financial incentives to work with ICE undermines that goal. It destroys trust with the immigrant communities, and I've heard that this week from them. That's not just me speaking. It makes our communities less safe by discouraging immigrants from reporting criminal activity or cooperating with investigation and prosecution of crime. So for this amount that we got, it comes out to $7.75 per bed day. That's for 12,417 reviews. I was wrong last week when I said it was $15. I don't have the data or the number of the people that were impacted because I did ask for that, but the sheriff's office told me I have to get it from ICE. And in 2019, I did an ICE FOIA, and I'm still waiting for that response to come, so I don't expect that to be anytime soon. So again, I just say, why do we do this when it erodes community trust and creates a two-tiered system of justice for our immigrant neighbors? Why not let them go through the criminal justice system? If they're charged, go through the system, but don't have them face deportation because they had a tail light out, or they were speeding, or they didn't have a driver's license, or whatever misdemeanors there are.
Okay, Ms. Coker, go ahead and wrap it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Judge. In 2019, the last year, I do have data on detainers that were issued in Washington County. There were 199. The crimes that we had back then.
Thank you, Mrs. Coker.
Okay, were mostly misdemeanors. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yes, Judge, this is Lisa Ecke, and I'm speaking as a public. What they have done is misrepresented the Marshallese community. Marshallese, by law, are non-immigrants. They are here because the United States and the Marshall Island government came to an agreement. All Marshallese people have the freedom that all Americans have except the right to vote. They are non-immigrants. This whole SCAP thing doesn't even include them because they are here because the United States of America and the Marshall Island government came to an agreement. And that is what I think everybody needs to understand, that this doesn't even affect them. We're not just talking about illegal Latinos. We're talking about anybody who is illegally in the United States from wherever they came from Timbuktu. If you're not here illegally, you commit a felony, that is what happens. So it does not include the Marshallese people. Can I make that clear again? They are non-immigrant status. This doesn't affect them. But yet somebody chose to spread misinformation and got them all upset that they can't even go to Walmart. That's wrong, and shame on those that are spreading this misinformation and perpetuating the lies. Thank you.
Public comments.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Gladys Tiffany from Fayetteville. And thank you, J.P. Ecke, for making that distinction between the way Marshallese community is categorized and the way the immigrant community is categorized. There's one thing I have to correct about that, though, because the fact is that this does affect them. They're not immigrants, but it does affect them because the way that it's actually playing out on the streets is that there's a real strong tendency for a lot of people, not just police officers, but a lot of people, they can't tell the difference between a brown-skinned Marshallese person, a brown-skinned Latino, or another group. And a lot of the things that happen to them. And in fact, we had a lot of Marshallese community who were picked up and deported before anybody figured out that they were not really supposed to have been deported. A lot. That happened very often. And then the things that are happening in the community that, you know, the things that are unfair and are being mistreated, they're being mistreated as brown-skinned people, even though they are, technically, they're not immigrants, but there's a lot of uncertainty in the community, just like you found out. A lot of people are not aware that Marshallese people have this very special relationship with the U.S., and it's made it very difficult for them to really get fair treatment. So I just wanted to point that little bit of information out.
Public comments.
My name is Lexi Acello. I want to make clear I'm speaking as a citizen of Springdale and Washington County and not as a county employee, though I am employed by the county. I'm going to draw on my employment experience to say that people from the Marshallese Islands are absolutely impacted by this. They can be deported. They can have ICE holds placed on them. I have Marshallese clients, so I have to be sure to advise that their charges can lead to their deportation and other adverse immigration consequences. I oppose the SCAP grant for various reasons. One, everyone, regardless of country of origin, should feel safe around the police. Everyone. They should feel safe to call the police, to report a crime to the police. They should not feel like they are in danger of being taken away from their families when they engage with the police. But even larger than that, this is a privacy concern. If you are someone who values privacy, I mean, we have a whole constitutional amendment just around privacy. Our founders certainly valued privacy. We shouldn't be, as a county, selling people's citizenship information for profit. We shouldn't be profiting off of that. That is private information that we shouldn't be handing out. So just voicing my opposition to this and correcting some errors that this doesn't affect people from the Marshallese Islands. It absolutely does. Thank you.
Public comments. Minute 15 seconds for public comments. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Sean Simons, Springdale, Arkansas. If you have a credit card, if you're an elected official, if you use the internet, your information is being sold anyways.
Public comments. Public comments. All right, Ms. Myra. Up. 55 seconds, Mr. Bush.
We're about to vote on something, and I'm for the grant, but I want to explain to you some of these speakers already know because they cruise on the internet, and they already know what color some of my family is. And so I take offense of people discriminating against color. And that's exactly what they're doing when they try to omit or get around the law for some people that are of color. They need to know what color my daughter-in-law is, and I believe some of them probably do. They've probably seen the pictures, or my granddaughter, or some of my cousins. And I'm not going to go down the list and go through it because I don't think it's very respectful towards some of my family, it's a little more darker skinned than I am.
Okay, J.P.
And
Pond.
I duly note, I do take offense to what they're doing here and using color. It's about time, we're in the 21st century, and here we are, using things that, well, like we had never heard of Abraham Lincoln. Thank you.
Ms. Myra? This is a vote on the item 15. Item 14. Item 14. Oh, it's already been voted. That's 13, okay.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Myra. Item 15, council read that one by title only.
An ordinance appropriating $9,000 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to the prosecuting attorney budget for 2022.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge. This is an appropriation to help Prosecutor Durrett with increased office supplies and salaries for this year. I move passage of item number 15.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Myra?
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
Item 15 passes. Item 16, thank you, Ms. Myra. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $1,634,400 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to the pass-through payments line item in the American Rescue Plan Act budget for 2022.
J.P. Duncan.
I move that we pass item number 16.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? J.P. Lemming? Yeah.
One question, it says on here that it's going to be going through April 30th of 2026. How do we budget money past the end of the year?
No, that's the.
What's that?
Sorry.
What is that?
Go ahead, J.P. Duncan. That's what it's.
It says here, said funds will provide support to Returning Home, Inc. through April 30th, 2026.
So we've got CEO of Returning Home, Nick Robbins, here, but J.P. Lemming, I'll answer that best I can. We would appropriate money now, so it would come out of the American Rescue Plan line item. And how ARPA is set up, you have the ability to fund through that date. So we would be essentially funding through 2026.
So
yeah.
The 1 million.
600,000.
600,000 will be for 3 years, correct?
Mr. Robbins?
Yes, those funds will cover 3 years of the program, 24 beds for 3 years. And the ARPA funds have to be appropriated during a certain time, but they can be expensed to the beginning of 2027. So these funds will be expensed prior to that.
24 beds per year for 3 years?
Correct, yes.
72 beds.
J.P. Stafford, Real Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Could you kind of walk through, just briefly for folks who weren't at the Finance and Budget meeting?
Yes, thank you. So just to kind of refresh everybody, it was probably 2018, 2019, when we were talking about building this jail back then, we were asked to come and speak on the different community services that could be done in alternative sentencing. And so we ended up putting an application or submitting a service, and Washington County funded it. Originally for the first year, it was funded for 10 beds. And then this last year, it was funded for 16 beds. And the idea would be going forward, it'd be 24 beds. And so what we do is we work with drug court, we work with prosecutor's office, public defender's office, Washington County Jail, probation and parole. We're either getting individuals that are getting ready to be sent to jail due to infractions on supervision, or individuals that are currently in jail with low-level charges, and instead of sentencing them to prison or extended stay in jail, they'd be sentenced to us. And so while they're with us for 4 months, we provide them housing, food. They meet with a therapist every single week on site. They have a caseworker they meet with every week. They go through classes 5 days a week. We get them employment. And so these individuals are now taxpayers. They're paying off child support, and we have a fatherhood program they go through. We have a trauma healing program they go through. Everything we use is evidence-based. It's been a real blessing to be able to do it. We have some awesome men that we've been able to serve, and we're really honored to partner with Washington County in this unique way. Currently, the referrals we're getting from the judicial system far outweigh the beds that we have available, and so that's why we encourage an 8-bed increase from the 16 to the 24. It still wouldn't cover all the referrals that we get, but so like just a snapshot today, we currently have 1 bed open, 11 people waiting for that bed that have been approved, and 9 applications that we haven't had a chance to go through yet. And so these applications are coming from our public defender's office saying, hey, we reached out to the prosecutor, they consider this, and that we are part of their sentencing.
And without this funding, what would you be facing?
Well, so this is Washington County's program. We also have a Benton County program that they fund. We also have a state program that they fund. So if Washington County was saying, hey, we don't want to fund this, then we would close it down and we would transition it back into state beds. So this isn't something that we could possibly fund.
So this is literally to keep the program running.
Absolutely.
Period, through 2026.
Yes, and we have, I'm also on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, and this isn't the answer to the overcrowding. There's like 10, 15 answers that need to happen. And so we're working diligently with everybody to start rolling out lots of different opportunities. And what's been such a blessing is, as we're looking at pretrial services, as we're looking at a diversionary caseworker that could expedite the release of these individuals, it all comes back to we need to be there to welcome them. Because it's not just about releasing somebody from jail, because freedom wasn't the problem. So if we just release somebody, they're just going to continue that lifestyle. So to be able to have somewhere to send them in a setting that is, I mean, we're staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We work on Christmas. We never stop. And we're making sure these individuals are doing well, and they are being extremely successful. And we've got individuals that are reconnecting with their families and just doing really awesome stuff with people that have significant mental illness, have significant trauma, significant addictions, and we're still able to invest in them and see that life change. And so they're the community we want to live next to us now.
And then one last question. When does your current funding run out?
It is in April, and so the end of April. And so for how we work, I can't have somebody sentenced to me past January 1st because I have to have 4 months of funding, or then that would mess up how they're sentenced. So really it has to be done in December at the latest for us not to be interrupted.
Gotcha.
And we only have, so to give you an idea, so Benton County has 8 beds, Washington County has 16 beds. I only have a capacity to 32 total beds. So I'm offering those 8 extra beds to you all. You were first to the deal. Benton County saw what you guys were doing and they jumped in. But their contract will be coming up, and so they may want those extra beds. But based on like our caseworkers and classroom space, 32 is as much as we can handle, because these folks are a lot to handle often. So
Gotcha.
I wouldn't want any more. I think JP Dennis threatened to send all of them to me. He said, you can have every one of them, the sheriff said, and I was like, I'm good, just 32.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Thank you. You guys are providing an important
you so
service
much.
for the county, and thanks for answering my questions. And thanks for everything you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Nick. Public comments? Director Drew.
Hi, my name is Drew Smith. I am the Criminal Justice Coordinator for Washington County, and I just wanted to reiterate what Nick said. This is a very important service for us. As the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, we work to find diversionary programs in the county to reduce the jail population, but not just the population, but also recidivism, and that's what Nick's program does. If they're not funded, then we take a giant step backwards in what we are trying to do as a committee.
Thanks, Drew. Public comments?
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. On the one hand, I appreciate what Mr. Robbins does with that organization, has for years, and his work on the Criminal Justice Committee, making progress towards reform in Washington County. On the other hand, I don't understand why this particular organization is getting preferential treatment. The only facts I do have is that there was a political donation made back in January, and since then, $200 can potentially be going to the organization. Where do I sign up for that? That's not pay to play. That's like winning the lottery. I'm not saying necessarily that there's any connection, but I do know that this organization was given $315,000 or $50,000 back in January, and now 1.63 is on the board. So that's almost $2 million for the year, spread out. That's one concern. Also, it goes through 26, which I didn't think that you could commit to other quorum courts paying for things down their way. This did not go through committee. It was discussed last week at committee, but there was no ordinance passed. So it seems like we're going out of order there. That's another concern. Seems like it should go back to finance. In fact, maybe even county services before that, and then finance, and then back to the full quorum court, if we're going to play by the rules that we typically do. Also, it's coming out of American Rescue. I have another concern that this 1.6 will come out of the earmarked 2.3 for nonprofits in Washington County. And what I don't understand, why one organization gets to skip the line, skip the process, the application process that county services set in place, and the county services chair is saying, let's pass this on, let's do this. There are other organizations that are scrapping for much less that also do worthwhile work in the community. There are many others that aren't even aware of the opportunity because there's been little to no advertising of the program. And this organization alone gets a blank check and says, we trust that you're going to do the right thing with it. I do appreciate alternatives to incarceration. Like I said, I do appreciate anything that puts people on a more positive path rather than being locked up. But at the same time, there are so many things that don't add up with this particular ordinance. I can't understand why a quorum court would, how a quorum court could say they are responsibly passing this and not be concerned with some type of class action lawsuit that might come from other nonprofits, because they get the lion's share. Thank you.
Public comments?
Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville, and I have a lot of the same concerns that Mr. Moody said whenever he came up to the podium, but I wanted to add a couple of more concerns that I have. I broke down the numbers. It's $1,833 per bed per month is what the money comes out to be. And my other concern is if this is on the budget for 2022, why isn't on the budget for 2023? Because we've already funded them through April 30th of 2023. So this needs to be budgeted for 2023 through 2026. It doesn't affect 2022 because we've already budgeted them through April 30th of 2023. So that's another concern I have. And also, I'm wondering if the same consideration would have been given if the director of the Magdalene home was on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee and had brought this up. Would they get the money from the American Rescue Fund to fund the ladies, the women's house for the jail? Same type of thing. I'm just wondering what the consideration would have been for that. And I just can't help but feel that because of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee and some of its members that are on there, this gets preferential treatment over some of the other nonprofit entities, and that concerns me greatly. Thank you.
Public comments?
Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. I echo many of the sentiments earlier. You know, we waited for quite some time in the community for a process to form around the ARPA for a nonprofit application. Just to kind of refresh for folks who haven't followed this over the last year and a half, $2.9 million was already given. Upskill Northwest Arkansas got to jump to the front of the line and were given money for their program as a nonprofit. And if you take the 1.6 that we're looking at for returning home, that's $4.5 million to two nonprofits ahead of the rest. Only 2.3 has been set aside for nonprofits through the application process. And so I do kind of scratch my head and have concerns because if two worthwhile organizations came forward with their proposals already that you're considering to approve ahead of this application process worth 4.5, then it stands to reason that there are probably worthy causes within the community that you've yet to see that are way greater than 2.3 million. And so I'm real curious, you know, what this body is going to do going forward with these ARPA monies. I do agree that we do need alternatives to incarceration, and I think that Nick Robbins' program can definitely be a part of those solutions, but I think there has to be an equitable process. I think that it is incredibly concerning and alarming to the community to think that because he does get a seat at that table where other entities and community members would want to be present as well, that it does potentially show that he's getting preferential considerations. I do think that his program should be a part of our solution. However, I think there are a lot of things that we have yet to pull the trigger on that actually can get more people out of the jail. I mean, pretrial services is going to cost us $600,000, and it could get almost 300 people out of the jail within 2 or 3 months. And so I kind of scratch my head that we're not moving with expediency on that. And so I appreciate you listening to my concerns tonight, but I echo the sentiments. If we move this forward, I'm incredibly concerned about the total balance for the ARPA monies. And you know, we're setting this precedent that certain folks can jump to the front of the line when we set an application process. Thank you.
Public comments.
Good evening. Aaron Howerton, JP candidate, District 4. First, just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to our comments, as always. Now, I don't blame any of the organizations that are trying to get funding. It makes complete sense. If Nick was given a path to funding, why would he not pursue it? Clearly, there's a need and there's a demand for his services in our community, not just from our county, but from other counties. But I have to echo the same concern. Why is this process okay here? But I have sat in this court for over a year watching organization after organization plead for help with funds that we've had available, and they can't get them. No process was presented, but last week, Nick gets guidance to go to the county attorney, who suddenly has some time to write up an ordinance and get it here in a week and a half for $1.6 million. For a quorum court that really seems to be concerned about points of order and due process and all of this stuff, this kind of stuff keeps happening. This is just public observation. And it's really disappointing. It's disappointing to Nick because it's not fair that his organization is in the crosshairs of funding that he clearly needs. It seems to be making a difference in our community that we desperately need. And the rest of the time we have other organizations that have been here asking over and over again and not getting help. And when the public comes up to make comments, the general reflection from this group is silence. Now I know that's an ordinance. That's good for you. That means you don't have to talk and you can't speak back to me. But it's disappointing. I'm really disappointed, and I hope that with early voting starting next week and November coming around, that this county gets up, makes its voice heard, and helps us make change for a better future for everyone in this county.
Public comments? Public comments. Ms. Myra?
Chandra Washington.
Abstain.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
All right, item 16 passes. Item 17, council read that one by title only.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $545,140 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to the medical dental hospital line item in the ambulance service budget for 2022.
JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge. This is funding to correct a deficit in the central EMS funding for the year. The pandemic's hit them especially hard, and of course, it's a critical service that we need to continue for the county. I move to pass item number 17.
There's a motion and a second. JP Dennis. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? All right, Ms. Myra.
Yes. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
All right, item 17 passes. Item 18, council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance establishing a county general subfund to be called the Local Assistance Tribal Consistency Fund and to declare an emergency.
Who has that one? JP Deakins, you have that one? Go ahead.
Thank you,
JP
Judge
Deakins.
Wood. This is an accounting ordinance for Treasurer Hill to establish a new fund to handle some ARPA monies. I move passage of item number 18.
There's a motion to pass item 18, a second by JP Duncan. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Myra?
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Myra. All right. Did I miss one more?
I'll read it.
Go ahead, counsel. Read that one by title only.
An ordinance appropriating $60,000 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the vehicles line item in the coroner's budget for 2022.
J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. We mentioned this earlier. This is an appropriation for the coroner to buy the truck. He's staged out his vehicles. I want to thank Coroner Morris one more time for helping us out, coming with us for ideas, and being very open to helping us. I just thank you so much. I move passage of item number 19.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. J.P. Lemming.
Patrick, whenever that was 110,000, did it stay 110 in the budget, or did it go down to 50? I thought you said 50 and that's 60. Can you clarify all that? Well, it was 200, it went down to 110, then you mentioned something about.
So it was 200 in his original budget request. Later, Coroner Morris offered to drop that to 110. And then subsequent to that, he said he had a vehicle he could purchase now, which was the 60.
Okay.
And then we're giving overall we're giving him 110, but 50 next year, 60 this year, or whichever way.
Okay.
Same thing.
Okay.
Got it. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Myra?
Chandra Washington. Yes. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacons. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Pass.
Thank you, Ms. Myra. You know, we just thank Roger Morris, and again, they've been going through it. I want to make sure I did not do this at the time, and they're gone now, but the Washington County Extension Office 4-Hers, Myra, Julie, Betty, for putting on the 194 birthday. Thank you guys, Renee Oschlager and Julie, for helping put the contributions to the book. And so again, I failed to recognize them while they were here. Committee reports, county services, J.P. Duncan, reports in the packet. Finance and budget, J.P. Deacons.
Reports in the packet, Judge.
Meeting